Hello, everyone. Welcome to Developing Palates. I am Aaron Loomis, and tonight we are doing our TPE20 recap show. We have a great group of guests with us tonight. Typically, we do a kind of a media-only focused recap of the trade shows, but we're going to mix it up, and we're going to try to get a bunch of different points of view on the event itself. So we'll get a kind of a retail point of view, a brand owner point of view, on kind of get a mix of all that and see how the event went. So without further ado, I'll introduce our guests, and I'm going to read them as they show up on my screen here. First off, we have Mike Szczepankiewicz from Cigar Hustler and Powstanie. Did I get it right, Mike?
Not even close.
No.
That's
all right.
Good. It's all
good.
Right.
Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And next we have tonight, he is Bill Cooper from Cigar Coop. How you doing, Bill?
Hey, what's going on? It's the alter ego.
There you go. And next we have Jeff Borysiewicz from Corona Cigar and Florida Sunground. How you doing tonight, Jeff?
Good evening, guys. Thanks for having me on the show.
And last but not least, we have Robert Holt from Southern Draw Cigars. How you doing, Robert?
Doing well. Appreciate the invite. Look forward to it.
Yep. And thanks for doing this on your trip home from the airport. Really appreciate the dedication.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
All right. So we're talking about Tobacco Plus Expo 2020. And I would think that most people that are kind of tuning into a show like this would have a bit of an idea of what the show is about. But just kind of give a bit of a brief intro on what the whole reason for the show is. It's a premium cigar, tobacco, vapor, and alternative trade show. And the alternatives can be CBD products, glassware, pipes, any number of other things. So it's a mix of quite a number of products, but it is a business-to-business buying show. So it's there for retailers of various types to meet the brands and have the opportunity to purchase products for their stores or catalogs, their online businesses, whatever it is. Anything else that I missed on there that would be kind of a good description of what the show is all about?
No, I think you're pretty spot on there.
All right. So have any of you guys been to this show previously in any of its incarnations, I guess?
This was my third time attending the show.
Okay.
And I had attended the NATO show before it was TP as well. Mm-hmm. And have been a member of NATO, which is the National Alliance of Tobacco Outlets, for probably about 15 or 20 years.
Okay. And when was the last time you went to this show? Was it recent or was it a little further back out?
Been 3 years in a row now.
Oh, okay.
They had invited me out. Like I said, once they started putting more focus on premium cigars, they invited me out. They wanted us to. They had me on one of the panels for retailers, something like that. So I've been a third time.
Okay, nice. And this year and maybe some years previous, you might be able to shed some light on this, Jeff, is they were really incentivizing people to attend on the premium cigar side. So there were incentives for retailers to attend. There was incentive for media to attend. And I think from the brand side, Mike and Robert, you guys might be able to also share on this. There were some incentives for the brands and the manufacturers to come to the show, or if they got a better deal if they did particular things, maybe releasing a cigar or something like that. So I think from the retailer side, they were comping some of the nights, maybe 2 of the 3 nights, a nice gift card and things like that for incidentals. On the media side, they were doing something similar where they were covering a few of the nights. They gave the media a nice kind of media room where they could kind of set up shop, have some Wi-Fi access, do some work if they needed to, have some snacks thrown in there. And then on the exhibitor side, Robert, maybe you could share, were there deals set up for if you were releasing something new with the show or any various options there?
To my knowledge, no, and I don't want to step on toes if others negotiated a better deal than I did as a small potatoes guy, but not published or shared with me. Obviously, we did release a new cigar that didn't provide an incentive, but I would caveat that by saying I think just the mere options of a smaller footprint with a lesser financial commitment, a little less planning, a little less execution, just to get there, to me is an incentive alone, right?
Right.
So, Aaron, I could definitely confirm there were incentives because this is one of the press releases I actually got.
Right.
I don't know what the conditions were to do it or when the deadlines were, but from what I understand, it wasn't a huge incentive. It was 5% on a new product. What that new product is, that's I'm not sure, but I can tell you that there was an incentive offered.
Okay. All right. So I want to ask each of you, or for all of us, is why did we choose to go this year? So I'm going to kind of, as I ask questions, I'm going to jump around to who I go first with. So I'm going to start with you, Mike.
Yeah.
What was it that brought you to the show this year?
Well, the tides are kind of changing, man. When you hear about competitions on the rise, you want to be ahead of the curve, and it's important to be there and kind of test the waters and see what it's all about. So this is a good opportunity. Mathematically it made sense as a retailer and as a brand owner. So took a jump, took a risk, and that's kind of what business is, right? Got to take a little bit of risk. So.
All right, Will, how about you? What made you decide to want to cover this trade show?
TPE is not really a trade show. Fits in a lot with what Cigar Coop does because we're very product focused and it's more new product focused. But I did get a phone call from the TPE inviting me, telling me what they were doing, really, really genuinely wanting me to be a part of this. And after that phone call, I kind of felt, they're trying to build something here. They're inviting me. Yes, there was a financial incentive to come there. I'm not going to deny that. But they were definitely putting their best foot forward. So I think I owed it to at least see what this was all going to be about. So I decided to go.
All right, Jeff. So you've been going the 2 previous years. So what made you decide that you wanted to continue that this year?
Well, this year was probably the most important to observe what's going on because there's a lot of movement in the industry right now. This is obviously a competing show for the PCA, and with the 5 big companies pulling out of the PCA, and this one kind of being positioned as those 5 companies that pulled out of the PCA were very strongly exhibiting at the TPE.
Right.
For me, it's to watch and see and observe what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
As far as like deals and stuff go, listen, you get the deals even if you don't go to the show. So the TP's got that same issue,
right,
that IPCPR has, or PCA, whatever you want to call it. But for me, it's to watch that. And believe it or not, I go on the other side of the show where all the, 3 years ago, it was hookahs everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Year before that, it was, vape everywhere and a little more hookah. And this year it was CBD and cannabis products. Not as much vape and not as much hookah as there has been in the past.
Right.
But I like to go around to see what's going on, even though I'm not in that business.
Sure.
But I mean, they could have been selling chicken coops, and I'd still walk over there and look because, I like to see what's going on in other industries just for a learning aspect.
Right. All right, Robert, how about you? What made you decide to want to go this year?
I think first and foremost is just our concept that you never turn down an opportunity to interact with our media members and our retailers and the consumers. And more importantly, maybe even than all that, is the brothers and sisters in this industry as other brand owners and retailers, would attend. So I heard a lot of rumor in the last 4 or 5 months that said we're going to TPE. So rule number 1, spend as much time with folks. It's a perfect time in January, so we don't have to wait till the annual family reunion, if you will, in the summer. And then the second part of that is kind of twofold, and that is, go back to the Wyatt Earp movie. You got to back your brother's play. I think everyone here knows that AJ Fernandez is a partner of Southern Draw. He's been our exclusive partner for many years, and we've had the knowledge that they had opted not to attend PCA, as well as some of the other, the other big fours that we've mentioned. So, we need an opportunity to spend time with them to really reassess our participation at the level of participation. So this was a great opportunity opportunity, I think, with 5 months out, 6 months out, to really spend time together in a circle and not react to what's going on, but really plan a response for Southern Drawl moving forward. And I think mission accomplished. We were able to do that over those few days at TPE.
Great.
Such a professional.
All right. So the next group question I have is, what were your expectations going into the show this year? I'm going to start with you, Will. Kind of leading up to it, what did you have in mind that might be happening here?
I expected that the investment they were going to make in premium cigars was going to be a factor, and there was going to be a lot of new players there, which is what I expected. I did expect a large alternative piece that Jeff talked about. So that was totally my expectation. I wasn't expecting a lot of new product. I wasn't expecting to cover the show like there was going to be a lot of new product, and I wasn't expecting a lot of compelling product that was new either. And so they will. I don't want to say they will low, but again, this is something kind of new. This was something in process. So I didn't want to put high expectations on this.
Right. All right, Jeff. So since you've been going the 2 previous years, did you have any expectations of any changes that might be happening this year compared to the previous 2 years you had gone?
Yeah, I expected to see what I saw, which was aggressive push to get the premium cigar manufacturers there, and they accomplished that.
All right. How about you, Robert? What were kind of expectations leading into this event?
Well, again, I think our first year, not a lot of expectation, not a basis for it for that matter, other than the opportunity, as I mentioned before. But I'll tell you this, outside of the expectation that was family, friends, and retail time together, I was pleasantly surprised with the turnout, the layout, the functionality, which I'm sure we'll get into later. But low expectation, but incredibly impressed how simplistic it was to set up and to display and to have conversations that we needed to have. So feel blessed to be invited, and the persistence of TP to get us there when it really wasn't on our radar really paid off.
Nice. All right, Mike, how about you? What were your expectations kind of leading into it?
Hi, Aaron. I had, it was an opportunity to see more retailers and consumers. So for me, it was just a no-brainer. It's just, you had to do the math, make sure that as far as the commitment was concerned, and your budget was concerned, you went in as low as you possibly could because you didn't know what to expect. But you got to kind of embrace change and, not be afraid of it. So I didn't expect it to be anything near PCA, as far as how that's been and how that's developed, but I wasn't going to be afraid to go, so the turnout for me, I thought was about what I had anticipated. And, I think that it turned out pretty well.
All right. So let's get into a little bit of the experience of the show itself. So the first topic I wanted to hit was kind of the booth layout, and something that you were kind of alluding to there, Robert. So there was kind of 2 different types of booth layouts. One was kind of the independent booths, similar, I wouldn't say similar level as PCA, but similar style, where you can kind of choose the size of the booth that you wanted to purchase and kind of set up, your own kind of layout and things like that. And then there was more of the pod or the kind of communal areas where each company had a kind of a guideline of what the booth layout was, and then they just really had to bring their product to display. They already had the kind of the rack set up and the little kind of desk there for you. So what were your guys' thoughts on those kind of different layouts for this show? And then Jeff, maybe you can kind of chime in on how it's been in previous years, if there was a change this year on what the layout kind of looked like. So if you want to go ahead and start on that, Jeff.
So, Jeff.
You want to go ahead, Will?
No, let Jeff go first.
All right.
Let Jeff go.
ahead.
Yeah.
Well, the biggest difference in the layout this year was the red and the blue carpets to delineate the premium cigar side from the mass market and vape and CBD and all the other stuff. So
it was mixed in previous years?
Yeah, I don't recall ever having that red and blue carpet,
Okay.
divided like that. So they did do that, and there was obviously a heck of a lot more premium cigar guys there. I tell you, one of the things I was a little surprised at is that Altadis's booth remained the same size that it has in the past.
Okay.
Now, these guys aren't going to the PCA show, and they have a considerable size booth there, right? but their booth at the TPE was a 10x20, which I found amazing. I mean, I walked right past it. So so anyway, I thought that was kind of surprising that they didn't, put a bunch of assets in on that. So so other than the number of guys there, and I thought it was pretty cool the way they had those little tiny displays where that let's call it the cigar village or whatever you want to call it, where everybody I thought that was cost effective and it was interesting the way it worked.
All right, Robert. So you had one of the booths that was in kind of one of the communal areas. What did you think of that setup?
First and foremost, economical, easy setup, easy to merchandise for the event. So that is an A+. I think the fact that it was our first year, we also noted, Aaron, that the other three little villages contain some very large companies. AKA, I mentioned AJ Fernandez. They had the same amount of space that we had down the path. And I think it was a great setup. If I had some feedback there is we need more seating. When you have that many groups there, it's going to be a brand that some retailer or some media is, excited about. There's not a lot of space to sit and engage or even stand and engage for that matter. But I tell you, an A+ for the option to do it. I think we optimized it and used it well. But, later on, when we talk about feedback, I have some thoughts on how we could probably all be more productive in that kind of pod format. But I tell you what, we appreciated just having that little 10-foot of humble space in the corner, and it it served us well. It allowed us to interact with a lot of folks.
Nice. And Mike, you had a different setup. You were in a shared booth that was more of an independent setup. So how was that like for you guys?
Well, I mean, Roma Craft is always doing their own thing, right? So it's important that they have their craft look. And that a craft look requires couches, and craft look requires Nespresso, and there are certain things that we need. So they did their best to do it on a budget, and I think they succeeded on it. The 10x20 was perfect. What was really ideal about that whole build is that, that the people that were going to that booth came there for you, and the fact that, in a lot of PCAs, I always see it's, the booth is so big for Roma that people are like, well, where's Mike? I'm like, well, he's actually over there, and he's busy, but like, you could see at TPE that Rosales was swamped. Right. So it was almost like as if retailers were a little more understanding, like they didn't get confused or get kind of caught up in the overall size of things. They knew that he was busy and they'd have to come back or set an appointment or something to that magnitude. So. Right.
All right. Well, what were your thoughts on the booth layouts?
So, I look at these trade shows and it's kind of like, I always call it a city, right? And I had no different experience with the city at the TPE, right? But there was a very distinct difference, right? So if you looked at the blue carpet side, that was like Beverly Hills. Those were the elaborate booths that we've become accustomed to at IPCPR. The red side had, I would say, more of a blue-collar urban feel to it. They weren't elaborate booths. I think we just talked about that a lot. The cigar, I didn't like it, okay? I didn't like the fact that we looked inferior to the alternative products. That's just the ego in me, loving and covering the premium cigar industry. However, the industry seemed content with it. They seemed content with it because they were willing to sacrifice that to get ROI and put their best foot forward to deliver a good trade show, and I respected that as well. But I kind of felt that the pod or pavilion areas I thought were nicely laid out. I thought they were I thought they made a lot of economic sense. Like Robert said, there were some big companies in there, that had some very big booths. Like, for example, AJ Fernandez, United Cigar, who had a huge booth at IPCPR, was in one of these. The problem was you were just too much on top of each other. And especially when I was trying to have media conversations, it wasn't conducive for media, which I think Robert had a good idea. If they can get a little more seating area, maybe in that center, that can kind of alleviate some of the congestion that we had there. Yeah. But I was surprised. For a guy like Ranier Lorenzo at HVC, what a great option it is that he can go to a trade show and have an economically exhibit his products effectively. So I think it was good there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my feedback was that, the booth layout were nice, very toned down from what's been at IPCPR previously. Well, I guess two companies. One is Phillips the King had a nice big spot because, this is kind of their show. So they can take whatever footprint that they want to take. But Drew Estate definitely had kind of the center spot, the big layout. They were kind of the coffee supplier for the entire trade show floor. So they kind of had a central point to everything, and they had almost like two sides kind of surrounding, pretty much a walk-in humidor that kind of displayed all of their products. So they had a very interesting display option compared to most of the other companies. But like Jeff had mentioned, I mean, Altadis, has a couple tables. General just had a couple of tables. So some of these large companies, other than Drew Estate, that have pulled out of the PCA, and even with Davidoff and their brands as well, very very subdued kind of displays and things like that compared to what they do at the bigger show that they're not going to this year. So they definitely had the funds to do something quite large. So it was just interesting to see that kind of at a smaller level.
So Aaron and Coop, I'd say, Coop, you really described it well about how, honestly, those other booths, some of the premium ones, they look cheap.
Yeah.
And you walk on the other side, the blue carpet, there were some big, elaborate, fancy booths.
Yeah.
And that's a totally different feel.
Yeah, because at IPCPR, you've got some monstrosities there, and the premium cigar is definitely the big thing that's at the event. There's some other smaller type of things going on, but yeah, the cigars are definitely the start of the show at PCA, but they were playing more of kind of a second fiddle to all the alternative stuff in the other areas. So, what are you going to say, Will?
Yeah, no, it's kind of interesting because La Polina's booth, right? I think was the exact same booth they had at their very first IPCPR trade show.
Right.
It just reminded me of the very first one in 2010, and I walk in. It was basically a long table with the backdrop. So like I said, it was kind of interesting with that. Kind of looking through there as well. There were some. It was surprising though. Like I said, there were other booths. Like Oliva had a very small booth. I mean, it looked very simple. Perdomo had a decent sized booth, and I thought they laid it out well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
anybody feel like it was a luxurious setup at any point in time going through there?
No, I wouldn't say that at all.
It was very blue collar. I mean, that's kind of the feel I got with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was it. Just but the industry was content with it, at least from the surface.
Not everybody.
Okay.
Yeah. I would liken it to be more like a tailgate, right? If you got season tickets and you're a big sports fan, you go tailgating and you get together. Some groups have big RVs and fancy barbecues, and some have smaller barbecues, and some just bring food in their cooler. But it had this game day tailgate kind of mentality. Yeah, there's some big boys, but for the most part, everybody was just kind of in that available space that was taped off for them under section, whatever it may be. But it had a very simple vibe. Again, if you're not well heeled like us, it kind of makes it almost equal. Nobody really stood out as except the aforementioned Drew Estate and P&K, but it kind of made it feel more fair to us than the fact that we can't compete financially to have these big booths. So I don't know about the perception of everyone that goes there, but for us, the simplicity made it feel a little more, more a little equitable when it comes to, meeting retailers and, accomplishing the mission, if you will.
Sure.
I think the crazy part to me is that, it felt like there was more camaraderie. These booths were 6 to 8 guys, and I mean, heavy hitters are in this little section. And it was really awesome. It was remarkable that you can kind of go in and you can harass, at least I like to harass, some of these big wigs for these big companies. And, and it was just kind of intimate, I felt, I felt more appreciated there as a retailer than I did roaming through a gigantic convention, unfortunately,
Right.
And I think that there are some things about PCA that have just kind of gotten a little out of control,
Yeah.
So, and don't get me wrong, I'm going to support PCA. I love PCA. And I think that there's a lot of great benefits to it, but there are some modifications that need to definitely happen on so many different aspects of it, you know?
Sure. And Jeff brought up kind of the separation of industries with the blue carpet and the red carpet. Did any of you guys, I know Jeff, you did walk through it, but did any of you guys get a chance to kind of walk through kind of the other side of the fence and kind of browse around to what was kind of being displayed or what kind of products were out there?
I did. I mean, but it was very brief. And I was looking high level at the products, but it was more the intriguing of their setup there, and just kind of comparing and contrasting it with the tobacco piece. So, I was just kind of curious, and Jeff kind of nailed it on the head. It was CBD was the top thing there.
Right.
I think you'd be stupid if you didn't go and look, because the fact of the matter is CBD is more socially acceptable than cigars are at this point, you know?
Sure.
Yeah, unfortunately.
How did you guys feel about the big badge you wear with that had that big CBD logo? I got Tanya's badge. Put a flash. See where it says just CD?
Yeah.
That's what the giant circle is under your name on the badge.
Yeah.
Now, well, here's the other thing we talk about. This kind of stuff isn't me, man. The thing that goes around your neck. What does it say?
Yep. High voltage detox.
All right. I don't sell shit like that, and that's not our business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're trying to sell, ST DuPont lighters and Davidoff cigars and Padron 50s and good cigars, it's a premium cigar lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, but you got guys drinking single malt scotches and coming in to live the good life and at least have a nice, meal or a nice experience. You don't want the druggie coming in your store to get a bottle of piss so he can pass the drug test so he gets thrown in jail when he visits his probation. That's what that stuff's for.
Yeah.
Okay. So if that's your business, that's great. But that's not what the premium cigar lifestyle is. I can tell you right now, the successful premium cigar shops are selling. If you're a head shop or these smoke shops that really sell, 80% of their stuff is drug paraphernalia and CBD and papers and bongs and all that stuff, that's a great show for you.
Mm-hmm.
But let's be real. They tried to bring in all these premium cigar guys. And I can tell you right now, you walk into one of these, quote, smoke shops, that dude behind the counter can tell you all the difference between Purple Kush and K2 and all that other stuff, trying to get them to tell you the difference between a Monte Cristo and a Davidoff. He doesn't even know what you're talking about.
Right.
And the guy that's buying those kind of cigars, he ain't going in there. You know why? Because he doesn't want his car broken in there. He doesn't want some Jakey needing to. It's a totally different business, guys.
Right.
And so that's the part that, for me, that's why I made a comment, man. They had this booth selling urine. So,
yeah.
I mean, come on. I mean, that's like, I'm in the wrong spot, guys. It just does not put me in the mood. That's not our business. So I was like, man, I just feel dirty being in the place, to be honest with you. Coop, you came into our store and smoked a cigar at your son. I know a lot of guys smoke weed, right? But they don't say, I can't wait till he's 18 so I can share a joint with my son. And that's the truth. And so, I mean, maybe some people do, but I haven't yet.
I haven't either.
Right?
I mean, I know he's tried weed and he hasn't talked about his first experience with it. So, and it wasn't with me.
So there's no way that you can get me to get in there excited about buying. Listen, we sell $10,000 Opus X humidors. We sell $3,000 ST DuPont lighters.
Right.
We sell $500 Davidoff Oro Blancos and $100, unicorns, as well as value price cigars as well. But they're not next to. You're not selling good cigars when you got a rack full of 2 for 99-cent foil wrapped Swisher Sweets. That's what a 7-Eleven's for, and that's what that show was traditionally for. That's what's called the National Association of Tobacco Outlets.
Right.
I go and I've been a member because I like what they do as far as political. But let's be real, guys. If you're trying to find this as a substitute for the premium cigar tobacco show, for IPCPR, people are kidding themselves with this. This is nuts.
Yeah.
Aaron, can I make one other comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
The badges were, I just want to say something about the badges. It was actually a big problem, those badges, because there are some people I don't know in the industry. Okay, even in the tobacco business, I know, right? But we needed to have our brand name on there, right?
Yes.
Not a CBD logo, and that was a big problem. That's why Craig came up with the idea. He put the sticker on there, and then that's Cigar Craig. And then I think a lot of us, I know I started doing that afterwards. So that was a little bit of a problem. I understand having sponsored badges and lanyards, but we needed to have our name on it because people had no idea who I was, especially when I was on the vape side. They thought I was a vape guy. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the separation was nice. That way, you can kind of focus on what you wanted to focus on. So if you just wanted to stay on the premium cigar side, you could do that. You didn't have to get bombarded with any of the aggressive selling nature of some of the other booths. I mean, definitely, because the food court's down in the back, so you got to kind of walk down there if you're going to go over there to get a drink or something to eat. So you're gonna have to pass 20 booths between the cigar side and getting down to the food court. Some of them were aggressive, but I mean, I think we're fairly used to that from back when some of those kind of companies were at IPCPR and they were mixed in with everybody. But I thought it was nice to be kind of split out so that you could kind of stay in an area if you wanted to stay in there, or you could kind of venture out into the forest and take life at your own risk if you wanted to do that.
You know what I noticed was much different this year though than in the past. The last 2 years I've been there, the smell of weed was overwhelming inside the place. Everybody was smoking dope.
Right. And
this time I smelled weed, but not nearly as much as in the past.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys know that.
Yeah, it was, once you get in that area, you could smell more of the kind of the flavors of stuff, like, things like that. But the weed was very toned down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, so that was much toned down, more so than the last 2 years.
Okay. Interesting.
Well, I don't know if it's on the same topic, but part of the observation you guys are making or something that Sharon runs this company. Most people know I'm not the bold one, but she made some comments about the fact that the blue carpet side is just not fitting for our brand, and the participation, had she known how that would be laid out and how that association for our brand would have not really melded well, she said she would have turned down the opportunity and wouldn't have gone. And the second side of that is, in fact, back to the simple branding and representation on the lanyards and the bands, because what we wear and what we display is who we are and what we stand for. And she certainly doesn't stand. I'm probably a little more flexible, but Jeff's made some strong points there that you guys have discussed. But I think moving forward, TP will have to find a way to make sure that red carpet is a different experience. And with that, how simple is it to have, badge sponsors and lanyard sponsors, and to keep that as a separate component within the same confines of the space, I'm sure. But I don't know how hard it will be. Probably not too hard. But those are factors that we're going to have in the future, because Mama has some exception to it, and it's going to have to be addressed, I think.
Sure, that makes sense. So let's go ahead.
I had a question here. When we were talking about TPE was paying for retailers, hotels, and the gift cards and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was told in the past they were doing that for the guys that bought stuff like the mass market side in the category.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't occur this year. Now I can't verify that, but that's just what I was told, and that may be why there wasn't so many just having a 420 party there all the time.
Okay.
As in the past, because in the past, seriously, everybody was walking around smoking. When we go to the cigar store, the show, there's cigar smoke everywhere.
Yep.
Like that before, but just everybody smoking weed.
Okay.
So maybe they didn't buy those hotels and stuff for those guys.
Right.
So there are less of those people there.
Sure.
So I have to, you'd have to ask them.
Okay. Makes sense. So let's talk a little bit about the activity at the show. So kind of, we could talk to it from a couple different angles. One is from kind of the retailer side, what the focus was, attending there and what you were doing at the booths and things like that. And then from the brand side, kind of what activity they were seeing from the retailer side. So in regards to, the quantity of sales, was it, were people buying? Was it more kind of an informational, people kind of getting a feel for the show themselves, kind of maybe, reaching out to some brands that they hadn't talked to in the past? Maybe Robert, we'll start with you. What did you experience in regards to the retailers that were there that you were talking to? Were they in a buying mood, or were they kind of more of in a discussion mood?
Well, I think, again, two parts, and I'll be as concise as I can. The pleasant surprise was we had a tremendous amount of retailers from the cold weather states: Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Idaho, New York, New Jersey, of course, that we had been interacting with. We've had a moratorium on adding accounts for about 18 months, but they were scheduled for July, PCA timeframe to come on board. However, we're under the same roof. We got to spend time together, and I'm excited to share for the family that I think we added 35 accounts in very strategic areas that would have otherwise waited until PCA if we both showed up and we both had time to spend together. So I think that is one aspect of the buying. Did they open as big as they would have at the show? Maybe not. We're not known for big deals anyway. And then the second part of that is a lot of our retailers did show up. I mean, it's not a lot. Sharon and I were only there for 2 days because we had to fly to Pennsylvania. But I think we did somewhere just under 50 orders. And I don't know if that's a lot or a little, but most of those are in line with what the Q1 buying would be from the major retailers anyway. The folks that we know and know well, they were nice enough to kind of do that at the show for us to, I think, reward us. But by no means were the average orders as high as they would be at PCA, IPCPR, or if we were making shop visits. So pleasantly surprised by the cold weather states being there in Las Vegas in January and us not waiting. The other side of that is I don't think the orders that were put in were by any means larger or as aggressive as what we see at PCA or IPCPR, and nor were the incentives. But so we had a kind of a mixed experience there.
Okay. And Mike, how about you? What was your kind of experience in regards to the activity that was going on at the show?
So there was two kind of major parts of the activity. One was the intelligent retailer that came that is looking to bridge buy. You have an opportunity to come in January and plan out, what you're going to pretty much sell. You can go into June, July, and then re-up again at the show. The other one was just, people who wanted the opportunity to come in, they've heard about the product, they want to open up an account. I mean, those were amazing for me. Those are, anytime I have that opportunity for retailers to come across all over the U.S. into one spot, it's I'm going to do my best to capitalize on that.
All right.
So, I opened up some accounts. It wasn't quite 35, Mr. Holt, but, it was a couple that I really, really wanted, and I wouldn't be able to go up to their shop anytime soon. So the fact that they got to meet down there and open up 6 months earlier than I had originally planned, I mean, I was fortunate for that scenario. So I was really happy that it worked out the way that it did.
All right. And Jeff, how about you? What was your game plan going into it? Were you there more kind of to observe what was happening, or were you doing any buying or anything like that?
I normally don't place the orders.
Okay.
I have a buyer that does that. And they weren't really showing new stuff. When I go to the PCA and stuff, I'm really looking more at the high end stuff you need to touch and feel and look
Sure.
at before, if you're bringing in, something from, Daniel Marsh or ST DuPont high end humidors and stuff, you need to see those in person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the, like the God of Fire and the special release Fuentes and stuff that Keith Park does, you want to look at that stuff because every year it changes.
Right.
So that kind of stuff we gauge by looking, touching, feeling, and really seeing the presentation. But listen, this TPE is great for retailers. I'll tell you right now, because it's another opportunity to buy at a discount.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, that part's fantastic. I think that the main beef I have with this is it's being positioned. Listen, we had 5 guys pull out of the PCA show, right?
Right.
And this is an alternate show. And they're wooing and getting all these other guys and arm twisting and everything else for some other people to drop out. And so that's the reason I don't like what I'm seeing here on this. Mm-hmm. And in the past, it wasn't that way.
What's kind of remarkable to me is that TPE, Drew Estate wouldn't give you a TPE deal unless you were there. Meanwhile, at PCA, you could have gotten the deal no matter where you were at. So why would you do that deal in one place and not in the other? It was kind of was definitely interesting, and I don't know if the other ones are going to follow suit with the same scenario, but I found it kind of weird. Like, so if you weren't there, if you weren't present and registered at TPE, they wouldn't give you the discount, allegedly. At least that's what they told me. But if you didn't go to the show, they'd give you show deals. So why wouldn't you support PCA, but you're going to do that with TPE? Like
Right.
that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that may go along with their agenda for pulling out from the other one in the first place, trying to drive business to one instead of the other.
Well, I tell you what, seeing between the four big ones that pulled out, especially the way those press releases all came, popping at the same time.
Yeah.
Definitely collusion involved.
Right.
And this was not a matter of, the show's too expensive. Well, that's what I find is ironic is that Altadis is sitting in a 10 by 20 booth, right?
Yeah.
And why couldn't they just do a 10 by 20 at the PCA then? If you want to save some money.
Sure.
Right.
And that booth had a decent footprint to it, right?
Yeah.
So why don't you just do that at the PCA?
Mhm.
And also, don't forget, they're both in Las Vegas. So while they can complain about how much the union guys charge for labor, they're still the union guys, right? So it's just as much to have this guy plug in an extension cord at that show as it is the PCA. So there are a lot of excuses that were used that it's like, you know what? I'm just seeing through this thing. I'm seeing through it, and I tell you what I see. I see 5 companies now that are really just trying to, knock the legs out of PCA. That's exactly what I see going on.
Yeah. All right. Well, what was your experience from the activity that you saw going on, or when you were talking to other retailers, talking to other brands?
The one thing, obviously I noticed is that, when you're at a booth and you're trying to cover it, right? I didn't need to schedule as many appointments. In fact, I scheduled very few. I didn't have those cases where I was interrupted a lot, because there was less staff at these booths than there was at PCA. And even with the more staff at PCA, there's times where I'm not always dealing with the principal of the company. Sometimes I am dealing with some of the sales reps, right? Because I do have a lot of the information ahead of time. But there's times where I get bumped because they have to deal with a retailer, and that's part of being in the media, and I'm totally accepting that. I didn't find that was happening as much at TPE. There were a few cases I had that, but not nearly to the level that I had at a PCA trade show. So that was the first observation I had there. The other thing I thought that was very telling, though, was the last 90 minutes. And I paid particularly close attention at the IPCPR trade show to the last 90 minutes and how empty it was, and the last 90 minutes of the TPE. Now, there was less traffic the last day of TPE, but I was really looking carefully, and I know it's a smaller footprint, but I was observing, and there was orders and there was conversations going on in that last 90 minutes of TPE that, frankly, didn't see as much going on at PCA, So that was telling me something that people were still interested in there.
Let's do real quick. Do you think having the hotel night paid for the night before might have helped?
Absolutely.
That's what I'm saying. So what's
absolutely,
happening?
Yep, absolutely, Jeff.
I'm looking at a real scenario because I don't see how it's a sustainable model of continuing to buy everybody's hotel room.
Right.
So again, I see this as let's make it look good by getting a bunch of retailers out there by paying for their hotels and giving them $100 gift cards. That's what I see. You're getting
The other thing, Jeff, you made a point about like the labor costs. Now, I can't comment on this as much, but it's my understanding Cretech, who runs the TPE, was absorbing some of those costs for the exhibitors.
They may have.
Which is another, and at some point, again, how is that sustained? That's the kind of, that can't be sustainable forever if this is going to grow. There's a point where it's going to grow and you can't do that anymore.
Right. And you're making my point here. This is nothing. You look at the labor movements back in the early 1900s. What did the big factories do? You know what I mean? They sent in the henchmen to break people's legs to get them off the picket line, right? This is a hostile takeover. I'm telling you, this is nothing more than a hostile takeover. And that's what I don't like. I've been a member of NATO for 20 plus years. Okay. But what I'm seeing here, if those 5 guys didn't pull out a PCA, I'd have a different opinion about this. But I can see what's happening here. And it's politically driven too.
Yeah. All right.
Sorry, Aaron, maybe a question for you and yourself and Coop. But outside of the press release from the 4+1, meaning the 5 largest that have pulled out of PCA. Investigative journalism, have you guys been able to crack that code? That, you know, have you been able to get a straight answer as to the outside of what they published in that unified message, which again, I mean, there has to be some collaboration in order to have the same exact message. If all 5 of us, you know, wanted to put out a press release tomorrow, we wouldn't have that synergy no matter what. But is that a mission that you guys have on the media side, to crack this code so that we all kind of know where we're at? Because I'm puzzled, I'm confused, I'm concerned. Obviously, you know, one of them's my own partner, right? But to each his own, you know. But I sure would like to know some real answers at some point, and I'm just hoping that we're going to get to it.
So, Robert, quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
Who's your partner's biggest customer?
Those 4 guys.
Well, General Narcotics, and then Southern Draw, baby.
I just answered your question for you.
Yeah. I know, but okay. So, and I hear that, and I have my concerns, because again, I referenced it earlier, you know, I've been taught to always back your brother's play, right? And I'm having a challenge because I don't have the clarity personally, and as a leader of this brand that does millions of cigars.
Robert, It's not his choice. That's what happens when you have the big guys. They'll squeeze you until you pop. And that's what it is. If you're in his position, you'd be doing the same thing. That's who's that's company what it is.
I understand. I guess I'm such small potatoes, you know, that they don't need to say that to me, but I'll tell you that growing 200 to 300% a year in the retail side with them, you would think that some of that would have filtered us to say, we kind of expect you to fall in line. Now, I can be honest, I've had no pressure. As a matter of fact, I've just met with both of those companies trying to see what's right for Southern Draw. But it bothers me greatly, because I don't want to be put in that position as a brand owner. But again, if we just go with rule number 1, we're going to show up and spend time with as many people as possible. But I mean, I hear what you guys are saying.
So, Robert, let me tell you something. I've been in it for 25 years. In 1998, 1999, I remember being at the Douglas Perringer factory in Costa Rica when Tony Borhani told Douglas Perringer, "You're not going to make any more CAO cigars or else you're losing my business." You know what he did? He kicked him out of the factory. And that's when CAO went to Nicaragua, and Nick Perdomo picked it up for him. This is on that level, but on a grander scale. You're talking about some big companies here, all right? And that's another big thing that we're missing, because when you talk about investigative journalism, here's the part that people aren't asking. When you have the PCA trade show, the PCA is a nonprofit, okay? It's owned by a trade association. No retailer owns it, no manufacturer owns it. The CRA, nobody owns that. It's manufacturers that put up the money. It's a nonprofit. This is owned by Kretek. Kretek, which is the largest clove cigarette manufacturer, used to be cigarette manufacturer, right? Phillips and King owns the jar, distributes that. They might not own in the Philippines, but in the U.S., they are the distributor for the jar. The one and only clove cigarette, or now it's called a filtered cigar. Okay? And you've got these 4 companies, and this is where I think the companies are making a mistake too, because they're driving traffic and consumers by this award ceremony. So what happens in the award ceremony? There's a reason I didn't push the button this year and ask anybody to vote for us. Why? Because you know what happens? All these people, when you vote, what happens? They take your email. Right. Now who's collecting consumer data? And who's pushing all that data right into the hands of Kretek, right? Kretek's not in the mail order business. But guess what? Who's to say that General Cigar doesn't buy them in 6 months? Right. Now they have to show, and they have every bit of data that every manufacturer and every retailer just sent to them. You have to, this is a chess match. You have to understand the way these guys operate. You can't trust any of them. And that's where I just see this as the industry's getting played here.
So why carry any of their products then?
I'm sorry?
So then why do we carry any of their products?
Because listen, I'm still a business guy. Because my role as a retailer is to have that product on the shelf. But at the same time, I'm not going to be, bullshit along here, right? So It's better to know the shark, or the wolf that's in the house than not know that it's there, right? Yeah. So I know, listen, I'll sit across the table from a wolf. It doesn't bother me. I work with these guys. I deal with these guys, and I sell their products. But I also would never get myself in a position that if something happened, I'm not going to be squeezed like a grape, like what happened to CAO Cigars.
Right.
And I'm also not going to take my customer. Why do you think I don't let any photo booths in my shops? When they had those Avo photo booth things and all that stuff, learned real quick. Where do you think when people put their email address, where do you think it goes?
Yeah.
How do you think Davidoff launched their online store with so much data? From doing all those Camacho and Avo events in everybody's cigar shop across the country. How do you build a database? That's how. So when you look back at how you get played, you learn, you know, you don't want to get fooled twice.
Jeff, wouldn't you say that PCA was trying to do the same thing with CigarCon then?
Yes, and that's why I was the number one. Me and Dick Garofalo were going about it. I'm like, are you kidding me? You're going to ask retailers to bring their customers. The problem is the guys on the board of directors don't think that deep into it.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they do, they're afraid to ruffle feathers.
Right.
That's why CigarCon is a terrible idea. Cigars Internet is going to grab every bit of data from the general cigar booth. They're going to capture everybody's data when they come through there, you know, and you're just taking your customers and handing it to them. I'll compete with people, but I'm not going to hand my customer to them.
Sure. Coop, did you want to chime in on your thoughts on them all kind of pulling out together and what their motives might have been?
Well, it was definitely there's a power struggle going on right now with PCA. So I mean the costing is like the costing is there's a cost issue, but that wasn't the issue. This is the power issue. These companies felt they weren't aligned with the direction of the PCA right now, and they want a seat at the table. If they feel they want a seat at the table. I'm not defending. I'm not taking sides or another, but that's where this is all heading right now. And you know, there's some differences right now. There's flavored cigars is on the table right now.
Yeah,
you know, certainly is a difference. So, you know. The thing is, you know, and Jeff and Mike could attest this, PCA, IPCPR, RTDA, it's been a retail association for 80-something years. It serves the needs of the retailers, right? I'm a little sensitive in terms of trying to change that overnight. You know, it's you know, because again, but, you know, last year I think they left themselves a little vulnerable. And if there was going to be a collusion or whatever you want to call it, a coalition, that was the perfect time to do it because they got him on the ropes last year, and then they took advantage of it.
Right.
So this year that the PCA really needs to get their act together, and because the one thing that I've heard loud and clear from the people that are working with the TPE is the TPE is much more customer oriented, meaning the people that have their booths there, they're a pleasure to work with and take care of them. They take care of their customer, and I think that, you know, PCA needs to fix a lot of issues. It really does. They're doing it. They're doing, you know, the best they can, but this should be a rude awakening for them. That you've got to fix this. You got to fix the show, and you need to start listening to all your stakeholders here. Now, I'm not saying that you should be letting these, you know, those 4 guys on the board of directors or anything like that. That would be crazy. Don't do that. But you know, you gotta, you know, at least try to work closer with the ones that you got left too, by the way.
Right.
Make the show better, and you know, have a little better conversation with your members as well, the retailers.
Yes.
You know, we're all in this together.
Yeah. So let's get a little bit back to the activity, and I think this is probably a question more for Robert and Mike. Did you see any kind of crossover for opportunities from maybe some of the retailers that are more focused on the blue side of the carpet that kind of came over to the red side and kind of maybe were chatting you up at all? I mean, just a little bit of my feedback from what I saw. I did see some of that coming over, but what I saw was people just coming over asking for samples that probably didn't have any intention of buying. Yep. But at a different level, because there's really no incentive for them to buy. And other people just kind of touting, you know, what level that they kind of had in regards to number of stores or whatever it was. Did you guys see any kind of crossover from the other retailers that wouldn't typically be your customers?
Go, Robert.
Okay, I didn't want to step on toes there.
Appreciate
So, yeah, absolutely. I'm a Southern guy. I got to go last. Here's the thing. Under that roof, there were really three kinds of retailer consumer models. One is obviously cigarettes, chemical laden, filtered cigarettes, filtered cigars, whatever you want to call it. Then you got the CBD, THC, marijuana side, and then you got premium cigars. So the short answer is yes, we had people come to the booth and they, did in fact share how many stores they have and what they could do. And, as I told them, I said, from our perspective, we're committed to one kind of leaf and, we're going to stick with that. Sure, it might be lucrative on the other side, but we haven't accomplished our own mission yet. And our own mission is to make our cigars and our brand available to retailers of purely premium cigars, within 30 minutes of any consumer that wants it. We want somebody to be able to go buy our cigars if they choose to do that. And until we accomplish that mission, we have no interest in looking outside for new distribution channels or liquor stores or, gas stations. That's not our model. Our model is 2 chairs and an ashtray to have a cigar, because that is what gives us what we need. So, the opportunity was probably there. It was quantified by, stores and locations and their goal to add a humidor. But the reality of it is there's zero interest from Southern Draw in that. So you kind of just be courteous about it and send them on their way back to the blue carpet. And if I ever get a cataract, I'll spend more time on the blue side. But until then, I'm going to stick with cigars. Go ahead, Mikey.
All right. So for me, no, I didn't have any of those type of retailers come to me and try and figure out cigars. But what I will say is this, CBD is a huge market, right? And I could tell you that a lot of my consumers that are cigar guys would you either A, utilize it because they're athletes, or B, utilize it for their animals because their dog has anxiety or something of that magnitude. And to kind of just disqualify the entire group as a bunch of pot smoking, whatever the hell you want to call them, with fake piss is just like a little bit over the top. I think that so many more people are consuming CBD than they are cigars, so that revenue is a big deal. And, I think that PCA didn't help the vapes when they tried to come into our community. I remember some of those guys, they were cigar guys that were trying to transition over into something. It wasn't working well for them. And they felt that they got snubbed by PCA, and they dropped 20, 30, 40 grand at the show. So, now you have this other outlet that's kind of welcoming everybody, which I think that PCA, maybe they should have done that in the first place. And I totally understand that, you're going to have your wackadoos, but going about it a different way might have been better, not only for that industry, but for our industry as well, because the reality is we need every penny to fight all these regulations, right? Mm-hmm. So, and more consumers than you think actually partake in CBD than what you realize.
Sure. So let me respond to that. So let me make this clear. I have nothing against CBD. Okay. Matter of fact, I have nothing against medical marijuana. My father has a medical marijuana card. So the other thing is that, and I've looked at growing CBD. I've looked at growing hemp on a farm, right? But let me just tell you that I would never, ever, that is not, listen, we got the world's largest Davidoff store, right? It's luxury. You're not going to sell, that is not the same customer coming in. If you want CBD, that stuff's sold at Walgreens now.
Right.
Okay, you can buy that cream anywhere. Matter of fact, you can buy it at Big Lots. You can buy it at the dollar store now, right? No. That's not something that we're going to sell in a shop. I'm not against the product. But when you're trying to sell luxury products, or even if you're selling an $8 cigar or something, that's not the same thing as having selling the vape thing. Because when a guy smokes and lights up his cigar, he doesn't want to be standing in a vape cloud.
Right.
Okay. And he certainly doesn't want to be smelling weed. It takes away from his experience.
Absolutely.
So that's why there's head shops and there's cigar shops or cigar bar. And that's why they, trying to say that, trying to blend the two, it just takes me out of the mood. And here's the one thing I'm the I'm the kind of customer that we're going after. So I am that demographic. I understand the mindset of the guys coming in to smoke cigars, and I don't believe that's just, they don't necessarily mix.
Sure.
Right.
To kind of go on to Jeff and Mike's point, I remember when they were at the alternative products were at IPCPR, and they have a different mindset, right? So the cigar industry, very old school. You make appointments, right? It's very much old school business. These guys come in and they use very aggressive tactics to try to get customers into their booths. So, and I don't think that meshed very well. And I think that was the biggest problem that they had, is that I don't think there were ever ground rules laid down for these guys. And then they put them off in a corner and kind of pissed them off. And I think eventually they just left is what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was such a cult, and Jeff's nailing it on the head. There's a cultural difference to how you sell these products. And if you're going to invite them in, and if this is a premium cigar and pipe show, IPCPR, then they have to kind of accommodate to the rules and how we engage. No one ever did that, unfortunately, and it ended badly. And that was a lot of traffic that was lost, frankly, I think, at the show. You wonder why there's less attendance. There's a reason.
Yeah.
Well, let's another thing too. I sell the nugs, right? The ones that have CBD in it. That's a premium cigar. It's a great cigar. And people that are smoking that, it's not the same as when, look, my guys were selling tubes that you put the weed in and the papers and all this other kind of stuff, and blunt wraps and all of this. It's not the same. It's just not the same customer.
Yeah.
So, I got nothing against that product, but people go to one store for that. And if all I can tell you is the success of Corona Cigar, the way we don't mix the two.
Right.
Sure.
I'm just saying that the funding with that stuff at a convention would have been beneficial for PCA. You wouldn't have been putting as much pressure on everybody else to constantly raise more money.
So what do you think happened with the hookah thing? Because we never sold hookahs either. Now, hookahs
died
were.
off. It was a fad.
It's come and gone, right?
Right.
Did you notice how less of the vape guys? Well, you might not have been there last year, right? But I'm telling you, there was a heck of a lot less vape guys there this year too. So that's also come and gone. CBD, in my opinion, you're going to have a few players, but you're going to see that come and go. You know what's going to be there in the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? The premium cigars.
Yeah. Hopefully. As long as FDA doesn't destroy it.
Yes.
But I do agree with Mike on one thing, though. They, if they weren't there at TPE, they probably wouldn't have been able to have these incentives offered.
Right.
For the premium cigar side. I really, especially when I saw the money being spent on the blue side for booth space. They clearly made more money on the booth space on that end.
Yes.
So how long is that going to last? Is that sustainable?
No, that goes back to the point we said earlier. I think we're agreeing it's not sustainable.
Yeah, we'll cover that a little bit later, because I think it's something to look forward to the future to see how this kind of show kind of goes on.
That was in paragraph bullet point 4.
I'm going off the script, guys.
No worries. All right, Coop, I'm going to start with you on this next one in regards to the quantity and quality of new releases that were shown off at the TPE show. What were your thoughts in regards to kind of new product?
It was disappointing going in. Robert, you brought a compelling product. Okay, you were one of the few. You were one of the few that brought a compelling product. And I actually mentioned Robert bringing a Lancero into TPE was to one of his core lines, bold move, because it's a very connoisseur-y type of cigar for an audience that may not be very connoisseur-y. But I think he made the right decision there. For me, as a premium cigar guy, I saw Robert's Lancero. And I was like, that's something really good. But I didn't see that from a lot of the other companies. I saw a lot of lower end bundles from some of the companies being introduced.
Right.
I saw some cigars that were being quote unquote re-released, right? That really weren't new, that maybe they were off the market for a while, or they just weren't marketing as such, and they were kind of showcasing that as well. There were products that I got press releases on that were not even on display there. So go figure that. So for me, it was extremely disappointing. But I was expecting to be disappointed. And unfortunately, nothing was done to change that. So I think that could change.
Mhm.
Okay, I think if this is, I think it could change, particularly with some of the smaller companies, if they start, if TPE is going to be the show for them to go to. So I'm not ruling that part out. But in terms of this, again, go back to this trade show. There wasn't like a cigar that there just wasn't that like one like major release done at the trade show that
Right.
you've seen, like going back to when Plasencia launched a few years ago,
Yeah.
or when Davidoff launched Nicaragua. You didn't have anything like that
Right.
here. Yeah, Bilga brought Bilga to Brazil there. That's a European cigar, by the way. It's been out in Europe for a few years, so
Yeah.
they didn't even go do that.
What about that Aganorsa?
I mean, yeah, that was.
I mean, I think Karen knocked it out of the park. I thought it was a really good cigar.
Oh, I agree. I think that's one of the ones I would certainly put up there. That was,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that was a very good cigar, but I don't think it was a major line release like I was talking about Davidoff Nicaragua, or anything like that. That's or the Plasencias a few years ago. So we didn't really have anything like that, even from the big companies. Here was the other thing that was really interesting. The Phillips and King booths had Ventura. Okay, Ventura is their premium cigar arm. If you went into that booth, right, there was a kiosk donated. There was a kiosk dedicated to Ventura. Everything else was all the other distribution products. I saw more Drew Estate products in the Phillips and King booths than I saw Ventura products.
Mm-hmm.
So that said a lot to me also, what's going on there. That clearly that wasn't the focus for them there. Even they had a couple of new releases Ventura, but that was it.
In regards to the bundle cigars, do you think that there was any kind of tie-in to try to get maybe some of the non-premium retailers kind of to look at those as bringing those into their stores as a lower priced kind of a premium offering?
Yeah, I think definitely they were. And in fact, Altadis even brought in they had their new line as well. So I think Fratello had some as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think that was and that was not necessarily a bad plan per se. So yeah, I think there was some of that for sure.
But that's what the show has traditionally been.
Mm-hmm.
So that show was, remember, it used to be National Association of Tobacco Outlets. So it was more of your tin cigars, your cigarillos, and your bundles, because that's what their membership primarily was. It wasn't pre cigar shops. So the guys that you saw that from, they've been going to the show for years.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're selling the products they know that they've had traditionally sold. You didn't have, like traditional IPCPR type of cigar shops going to the show in the past.
Yeah.
But I was even surprised at the Davidoff cigarillos, which are not something technically that's limited to the appointed merchants. Davidoff didn't even have those in their booths, which I was surprised about. To me, that would have been a great opportunity for them. And I don't know what decision went into that, but there wasn't.
All right, Robert. So you released the Lancero line extension for the Cedrus. So was that a planned going into the TPE, or was this just kind of the timing that worked out for you?
I think the show just happened to correspond or coincide with a scheduled release. I think you guys have spent enough time with us over the years to know that we have a 15-year plan, and come hell or high water, I'm going to try to execute it. So is the family. So it was a January, February release. Anyway, but it worked out for us, and I kind of made a joke when we did the press release, and thank you all for supporting it. But small show for us, small cigar. I happen to be a very fond of Lanceros, and it's something that we keep the price point down, and we do move a lot for a company of our size. But the joy for us was there wasn't a tremendous amount of new releases that were announced that were executed there outside of the 10s. I think even AJ released one in a 10 with their partners at Cigar Marketplace too. But here's my observation from watching you guys, watching you, Coop and Aaron and June. I didn't see you guys run around with beads of sweat staring at your watch, trying to make sure you were set up with all your camera and audio equipment at every booth, fighting for every minute. What I did get to see is I got to see you 4 or 5 times in 2 days with smiles on your face, a little more relaxed, and we got to kind of be a little lighter in our discussion. It wasn't just let's get the mission done and move on to the next one so we can check them off the list. So I think it's a show. I don't think it's ever going to be the show for everyone. I think it's a welcome addition to the calendar if we get invited back, of course. But rest assured, that those brands that saw the success and saw the busy, time in the booth and the media coverage that were garnered by those people that did releases, I doubt very seriously if too many brands show up next year without some kind of arrow in their quiver to fling, right, to loose. But I appreciate the fact there wasn't too many. It allowed us to pre-sell and to accomplish our mission. And to us, I say this a lot, there's a lot of people that want to sell cigars. Our little family has to sell. We need to sell them. So any opportunity we get to do that, to kind of take away some of the attention and to do that and accomplish the mission, it's just a blessing for us. So we appreciated it.
You look at the cost for me to cover the show. If you take the incentives out of it, the costs are pretty much the same as for me to cover a PCA show. And the web traffic I get out of the PCA show is almost double what I got out of this show. Right. So the problem becomes is if this kind of stays, if this were to stay stagnant for the next 2 or 3 years, I don't know what the incentive is even worth me going back. I'm confident, Robert, like you said. I think there's growth here, so I am going to go back next year with that confidence level. With that, and hopefully it gets to the point that Jeff said that this is all premium cigars in a few years. So, yeah.
Sorry, let's ask ourselves this: if you went to the show and you displayed as a brand owner, factory, whatever it may be, let's ask ourselves this time next year, which members of the media showed up and supported the press releases leading up to it on the floor. And I can tell you this, if I'm going to have a GoFundMe page and if I'm going to adopt anyone, I'm going to get together with some synergistic brands and partners and go, hey, we cannot afford not to have these 4 or 5 members of the media not come and support. And if it becomes a financial liability for you guys to do it, I can tell you right now, just as soon as I'll put my PCA, CRA and all my other contributions and donations, you can hear it here first. I'm going to go lean on my brothers and sisters and go, we need to make sure if the show can't do it and it's not sustainable, let's find a way to get those members of the media there that need to be there, because you do a good job of covering what we do.
Thank you, Robert. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Well, we independently can't buy advertising that reaches consumers the way you guys have done for us in the first 6 years. And it's only fair to acknowledge that over and over. And it's important to us.
Thank you. And Jeff, you had mentioned earlier, kind of one of your functions of going to the show is kind of getting your hands on and taking a look at some of those higher end items. There wasn't any of that kind of at this show for you, really, was there?
No, I wasn't looking for it at that show. When I go to the PCA show, that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Because everybody's trying to sell a cigar, so this show for me is not always that fun, because you're walking down the aisle and everybody's like, why aren't you selling this or that and all this other stuff. And I go to the TPE more. For me, the most interesting booth I saw there was this Chinese printing company.
Mm-hmm.
They had amazing stuff. Yeah. So I look at some things that other people aren't looking at when I go to the show.
Right. All right. So let's talk about something that I didn't do a very good job of covering this year, which was the seminars. So they had kind of an opening keynote with Carl Malone. They had some dedicated cigar seminars, and they had some other seminars related to CBD and some of the other offerings. Did any of you guys get a chance to attend any of the keynote or any of the seminars that were going on? I'll take that as a no. All right.
I didn't, but I'll tell you why. In the past, like when I was in those seminars, last year I was one of the speakers, and it was set up in the middle. In the middle of the show floor where they had that, I don't know, they had like a lounge set up, right? Mm-hmm. That's where the seminars were. So this time it was off the show floor, which made it a little difficult for people to remember to go out there and those didn't look like they were very well attended. So I wish that would be back in the middle of the show floor. And I like the seminars that they do. I think that it's a great idea, and PCA started doing that as well. I think it just should be in the middle of the show floor.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There was a couple that I wanted to attend, but like when I saw, I looked at my watch and I saw the time, I was like, oh, now I have to run off the show floor to go to this event. And I kind of was always in the middle of something, and it just didn't work out for me. But the topics were interesting. I just never got a chance to kind of jump into any of those.
So I went to.
I'm sorry, but the other part that was weird is that the premium cigar stuff was on the last day, which is the day that has the fewest people there.
Right.
So that was kind of, and especially I thought it was very telling that the legislative one was the last one of the last day.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is what the root of all this problem is. But,
Yeah.
Right.
Aaron, what I was going to say is I went to the Carl Malone one because I was interviewing him, and I obviously wanted to hear what he had to say before I interviewed him, right? There was one interesting thing I noticed that they did at the seminars, and they were scanning badges there.
Right.
Which was the one thing that was different, where they weren't scanning badges going into the trade show floor, but they were scanning the badges at the seminars, which I thought was an interesting thing. And I thought that, they did a very good job at organizing. Carl Malone did a very good job at the keynote. He was a good keynote speaker. So he was probably one of the better keynote speakers I've seen at a tobacco convention. Who was the one? Marcus Luttrell a couple of years ago?
Right.
I thought he was, very different than Marcus, which was a little more of a fiery speech. Carl's a little more of a general speech. But, in general, keynotes don't normally do something with me. I think they tried to get someone who everyone can relate to there. So, but it was off on the side, too. And actually, I was late getting into the early show floor access, which, as you know, Aaron, that was a huge thing for us this year.
Yep.
Made a big difference this year with a lot of things.
Agreed.
so on that Carl Malone, though, the problem was it was like 3 hours before the show opened, wasn't it?
No, it was they had it.
It was
like
an hour and a half before the show opened for retailers.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it was, but it was strictly Carl Malone. They didn't do anything other. There wasn't kind of like an opening statement made or anything at TPE. Kind of to officially open the show or anything. It just they introduced Carl. He came right out.
Right. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the evening events that were going on at the trade show. So there was an industry party that happened on Wednesday night, and there were basically 4 different kind of events that were enclosed within this large industry party. And that was, I think, Villiger, Drew Estate, Jarum were the kind of the sponsors of those. Did you guys get to attend any of those kind of industry party events?
I went to the bazaar
Okay.
meet.
Right.
I mean, I thought it was pretty smart to put them all together,
Yeah.
That doesn't happen a lot at PCA. You got to jump from one to the other, and, you usually get to kind of settle in, and then you're like, oh, let's go see what's going on in the next one.
Right.
So to pull them all under the one roof, it's pretty intelligent, man. And not to mention, Bazaar Meats is banging. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I went there twice.
Yeah, that blew up your Facebook feed, bro.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh my goodness, I'm still 100% meat I ate. So
I think you mentioned after you left too. I think I thought
I had to make it very clear. Yeah, I had mushrooms and red peppers were the only non-meat items I had. Jeff would have killed me if I had salad. So
Yeah. Jeff or Robert, did you guys get a chance to attend?
I went to the awards one.
Okay.
That was the only, I flew in the day that the show started, 4-hour difference. So by 9 o'clock, that was like midnight for me. I was ready for bed. So I didn't go to the first night one. I wanted to, but man, the pillow was calling me.
Right.
But the next day I did go to the trophy one for the awards.
Right.
And that was really well attended. And again, I say well played is what that is. It's well played because they, how do you get these guys to show up?
you have an award.
How do you get people's data? Tell them to vote for you.
Yep.
Well, Sharon and I did not go. However, that we always have our family in the trade show booths, no matter where it is, and most of them have very close ties to Las Vegas and politics, and have been in state assemblies and some positions to see a lot of conventions and a lot of evening activities. So I'll tell you, the glowing report that came from the 6 members of our family that went to that that co-join evening was impressive. They said that it was functional. It was rewarding to be able to spend time with the people. But they say just the quality of the food and the entertainment was far surpassed anything they had at other trade shows, and they've been to all of them with us. So it actually made me second guess my video poker habits that I have after after everybody knows Espinosa and Saka and I usually retire to smoke cigars and play poker somewhere, but it's just our way of blowing off steam. But I hate that I missed it now. Now, I don't have synergies with any of those companies, which is really why there was no incentive, but I could have eaten some prime rib and lobsters and crabs and felt a lot better. But they were happy, and I'm proud that they took the time to go, and they gave tremendous accolades to those hosts that put those on.
Yeah, they had some nice different layouts. I mean, Drew Estate had kind of the club vibe going on. Bizarre Meat was more of kind of like a mingling and eating type of scenario. Then they had kind of like a casino area where you could they had some tables laid out and you could play games and smoke and drink there. And then the Villiger party was kind of a dueling pianos type setup. So they were taking requests and all that stuff. And once you get some drinks and people, they could sing along and things like that. Everybody kind of got into that a bit. So I thought it was a good layout for the various items. You kind of pick what your poison was at that point and kind of settle in those different events. So I thought it was a nice kind of group party that they had going on. Yeah,
they did a really good job with that. They did anyone. There's nothing you can really say bad about the first night party. Yeah.
And then the following night was the award ceremony that Jeff had mentioned. They did some various awards for Entrepreneur of the Year, Woman of the Year, a legacy. Kind of had 2 legacy awards kind of laid out there, so that was interesting. One was a voted on award, and the other one was just kind of a named award. And they had cigars from some of the various countries, so those were interesting. I know Coop, you and I had some fun on kind of trying to project some winners from those things and kind of picked apart how some of those cigars and things got on the list. But that was to me it was a bit of a kind of a drawn out event. The awards happened, fairly close to the end of the event. So they got people in there and they were kind of mingling and stuff like that. So that was nice. But for me, I like kind of a more condensed format, I guess, for the awards piece.
Yeah, the awards piece wasn't as dragged out as the Davidoff Awards used to be, though. No offense, Jeff. Those were long. Those were
yeah, but I will say this. Listen, the buzzkill for me was when the category for the award came up and Black and Mild was one of the contenders.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Bic Lighters was last year an accessory. But so I thought, okay.
You go to the Davidoff when they did the Golden Band, man. It was like being at the Academy Awards, man.
It was.
First class. And so
absolutely.
It's just not. It's a buzzkill for me.
So there was a telling message I saw with these awards this year, and it was with 2 of the recipients. It was Carlito Fuente and Pete Johnson, who basically flew in for those awards and flew out. They were in and they were out, and that kind of sent a little message to me that they're grateful to getting these awards. They came in for the awards to accept them. But then they flew out, and they've been, Pete Johnson and Carlito have been staunch Fest PCA supporters during this. So, that's just an interesting. What?
So you're saying it was planned?
I don't know. I mean, I don't. They don't. The voting wasn't very transparent. I don't quite understand a lot of it, the voting, but Janine Perdomo wasn't there. So, they gave her Woman of the Year. So, I kind of thought she wasn't going to win it because she wasn't there. But we were figuring anyone who was there, they were going to be the ones who won, especially Carlito and Pete. But Carlito and Pete would not have been there if there wasn't an award at the TP. That's my gut telling me that. So they came in specifically for that. I think they did the right thing there. It was a good gesture. But it sent me, like I said, if they were on the floor the other 2 days, it would have sent a different message to me. But it was a very clear message they sent that they were in and out for this.
Yeah, and Rocky Pearl got an award too, right?
Yes. For the Edge.
These guys are playing chess.
Yeah.
The one that they were nominated, Aaron, they said now they changed it, and they said it was the Sumatra Edge that won.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they
you
never
notice-
disclosed that before.
They never disclosed. There's like 6 Edge blends, and we're like, well, anyway, if anyone can vote for any Edge, and they never said it was Sumatra until the end of that.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of. I mean, I just had a lot of questions because nothing against Matt Booth. That cigar didn't have a lot of time to really acclimate into the market, and the Doomsayer won it. So I didn't quite understand how that voting went. There was something just weird about the whole voting, I thought. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not very transparent. So it's to me, there was just some questions I had.
Well, if Steve Saka wasn't on the list, then it wasn't properly considered. So I'm going to tell you, when his name wasn't on the list, that was a deal breaker for me.
There you go. All right, so let's look ahead to the coming months and into next year. And this is going to be a group question. I'm going to start with you, Robert. Do you have plans to return to TPE next year?
I would say emphatically yes. And if that's all you want's a short answer, that's my short answer. But
I mean, you can give reasons behind why you do want to return.
Well, I've given a lot of reasons, but I think with those reasons come, hopefully they'll accept the feedback of the people that did attend and participate, and will likely support it more. There needs to be some changes in how things are done. Obviously, we've talked about some of those up to this point, but even within the confines of our booth and focusing more on synergistic brands and people that can, when we have a discussion in a booth, we should be able to have it openly. We've got a lot of common retail partners and distributors. But the way it was set up this year, I wasn't with brands that are synergistic to Southern Draw, and it prohibited me in a great way of having open conversations, and there was nowhere for me to have that. And I don't think even having a 10 by 10 or 10 by 20 would have resolved that matter. But all in all, we were pleasantly surprised, and I think we're committed. I think it's a great winter getaway, and I think maybe more of the folks that the retailers that come from those cold markets just want to get away in January, and I think it's a perfect time to do it. Gives us a nice little shot in the arm, if you will.
All right, Mike, how about you? You have plans to return next year?
Yeah, I mean, it went really well. I think I got no qualms with it. I made, opened up some accounts, got some reorders from other retailers. Anytime that there's an opportunity where there's a bunch of retailers in one area and it's financially feasible, I'm in. So, yeah, absolutely.
All right, Coop, how about you? You going next year?
To TPE?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'll go. I don't know if I'll go with 2 folks or 1 next year. I think we're going to wait and see on that. But, yeah, there was enough for me to say, you know what, this is something I like to see. And, I made the comment, I haven't made this comment yet. I think, like, if you're cigar media, this is a growing show. You just need to see what it's about. But I don't think I need to put the resources in to cover it the same way I cover PCA, IPCBR.
Sure. All right, Jeff, how about you? You planning to go next year?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right, sounds good. All right, let's talk about changes for TPE21. Are there any changes that you would like to see that are ones that you could implement yourself? And I'll start with you, Mike. Anything that you would change going into it next year?
I think that if Drew Estate has a booth that big again, they need to work in some kind of slip and slide, something of that magnitude. I mean, it's obviously big enough. No, I mean, for me, the 10 by 20 worked. It was effective. I can't see us going any bigger than that. I kind of like we took a gamble and it worked out. So realistically, if I could release something at that show, I think that would be more beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Terrence nailed it with the Aganorsa. I thought that was a great cigar, and he's ahead of the curve, So, kudos to him. And I think that you're going to see more of that in the next year. You're going to have more cigars. You've got a lot of these guys just kind of jumped in, took a booth, took a stab to see what happened. And, that's one of the things that it takes. I mean, even at PCA, if you don't have something new or innovative, and, it hurts you. So it's just standard convention. So, yeah.
All right. How about you, Coop? Anything that you would do differently at the trade show next year?
Not much. I mean, I think from what I kind of invested into it, I think I would keep it the same. I definitely will make more use of the media room if it's the same, because I think there were things I could have done in the media room on site there a little more effectively, and including having probably getting some people out of the booth there. So because there were some conversations I wanted to have that I ended up having those at night, and I probably could have got some folks out of the booth with that. But otherwise, I think as far as what I don't think anything will change unless there's a significant increase in product, and I'm going to make it a little more product focused.
Okay. And Jeff, I know you've been going for a few years now, so you've kind of probably got your strategy down pretty well. But anything that you do differently next year attending?
Myself or them?
Yeah, by yourself right now.
No.
Okay.
I wouldn't do it.
How about you, Robert? Your first time exhibiting, anything that you would kind of change up maybe about your booth layout or anything that you would do differently at the show?
I think the simple change that will be a consensus in the family, Aaron, is less display, more seating. For us, our brand is about sitting down, having a conversation. And I'm not saying it's not that way for everybody, because Mike and his friends over at Roma Craft certainly have that hospitality aspect as good as anyone. But I don't think we need to display every product of every box and type that we have and every bundle. We don't need to do that. We need to bring the cigars, sit down and have a conversation. Let's take less space to show off, and let's open more space to sit down and have a conversation. I think that's it in a nutshell.
All right, Jeff, we'll start with you on this one. Things that you would recommend TPE doing differently next year.
Other than closing shop.
Yes.
Listen, I did not have this what should I use? This animosity towards it until this PCA pullout.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm seeing all the pieces align here, what's going on. And that was not, this was all about building a show and getting it. You remember, I was a speaker at this one, and this is my third one, and I just feel that there's a little. So why do you want Corona Cigar to go to the first year? Because what happens? Oh, Corona's there. Maybe I should be going from another retailer, right?
Yeah.
And I just feel that if I had known that this was more of a hostile takeover for the PCA. I just don't like being played. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like that's kind of what's gone on here. Is that you got 5 guys pulled out of PCA, and the excuses that they used were all about it's cost and return on investment. Well,
right.
And they could do the same thing they did at this trade show. They could have a 10x20, just like they did at at TPE. They could do that IPCPR, and I just feel that this is all about. Cutting the legs out of having a funding mechanism for the lobbying that the IPCPR and PCA do in the lawsuit. Let's talk about the lawsuit. It's a big win today, right?
Yep.
How do you think it gets paid?
Amen.
Any money from this TPA show goes to that? No, none, right? None. And yet we're getting all suckered into this. Let's all go to that instead of, don't show up to the PCA. Who's going to foot the legal bill?
Sure.
And don't you think that might be the end game here?
Right.
And what's going to happen when somebody like General Cigar buys this company?
Mm-hmm.
If that were to happen, then how you feel?
Right. Yep.
And that's all I got to say is that I don't, and I also don't like the fact that, Davidoff's not at the PCA and they're at this show. So I got Davidoff, which is a luxury brand, being sold next to bottles of piss. and I'm wearing a freaking neck thing that says high voltage detox.
Yeah.
So I've got some issues here. I really do. If these guys were still in at the PCA, I wouldn't have a problem with this. But I don't like the shift that I see that's going on. All
right, fair enough. All right, Robert, what changes would you recommend to the TPE for next year?
For me, it's maybe self-serving, guys. It's again back to the synergies. We're a small brand, and we love to support our retailers, yes, but and our media, but we like to support each other too. And I think it's necessary for us all to grow. So people of like mind, whether that's Roma Craft, whether that's Dunbarton or Foundation, and I'm mentioning people, Island Jim. I missed Island Jim. I tell you what, I missed his presence being there. I mean, I just, as a person and what he does for the industry, I really wanted him there. But what I would recommend to TPE is, if I can't have a retailer at my booth and I get a little order, or we, open an account or whatever, if I can't walk to the booth next to me and, have them shake hands with that retailer and have them get that moment of time and pass them down the line so that everybody is not just milling around. I mean, let's find a way to help each other. And I think, brothers and sisters, that's what we got to do. And I didn't see a lot of that happen. And you don't need every penny that retailer's going to spend at TPE at your booth, right? There's other people that need their time and attention, and you don't want to monopolize it. But I think there's a chance that we could create some synergy, especially with that pod mentality that's kind of right down the middle there. There's ways to ask a few questions and find out who works. Keep in mind, a lot of us use brokers and reps, and a lot of those brokerages carry multiple brands, and we've got them all separated. So the brokers and reps had a really difficult time making it around. But more importantly, the brand owners had a tough time. And my recommendation to them is let's make sure we're surrounded by some synergies so that we can help each other if we can. And it might seem like an ideal, but it's something that I think our family missed, not being able to just kind of hand off retailers to the guys to our left and right, and I wish we could have, and vice versa. Reciprocity always works in that case. If you've ever, and I'll leave it at this, if you've ever done multi-vendor events and large multi-vendors, it is absolutely vital to share the dollars that are going to be spent there. Just like, maybe I'll use TA as an example. Not that I'm a TA member, but knowing that we're there to spend a certain amount of money, let's make sure we spread the love, because maybe we'll all get rebuys and we'll all build our brands together there. So I think it's important to have some synergies moving forward.
Great. All right, Mike, how about you? Any changes that you recommend for TPE next year?
How the hell do you expect me to follow that? You go last moving forward. You always go last. I mean, holy moly. What Robert said, I agree with all that. The one thing that really annoyed me as on the retailer side was, on the manufacturing brand owner side, was the emails that I got were crazy as far as database. And it was from random different things from TPE. It was ridiculous. I wish that they wouldn't do that, because it just got to a point where it's just, it was obnoxious. Even if I responded to an email, it didn't matter. So why even send so many emails? On the other hand, I hope that PCA does a better job as far as like the opening, the hospitalities and stuff like that. And, I really want to see PCA succeed. So, I hope that there's a lot of adjustments on their end to continue to flourish,
Right. All right, Coop. Any recommendations for TPE for 2021?
Yeah, I mean, I would like. I mean, minor things. I would like to see a better job with the Tobacco Business Awards. Obviously, if you're gonna do something like that, like just do a better job with the whole process. I didn't like the whole crowdsourcing thing. Look, Cigar Journal's already doing that. I don't think you need to repeat that. I just didn't like that. Make some decisions. Put the nominees. Maybe make the voting. Not maybe. Tobacco Business come up with the nominees and then do the voting like they used to or something. I just didn't like it. To me, it just wasn't transparent. I would like to see improvements with some of the booths, so that some of the top companies, and I don't know if TPE can do this, but I didn't like. I looked at the Oliva booths. It was highly disappointing, right, to see Oliva have like a table there. And I understand, TPE. That's more on the. I don't know. If you're going to get these people to commit to this, maybe you could work on some standards with that. I don't know. It just didn't set well. The big thing I think is, though, first of all, I don't like the time of the year to having this trade show. And I know everyone loves it, right? But all it takes is one snowstorm in the U.S. to knock out airports, and you're going to have no one at this thing. I'm just saying, I've done enough trade shows in Las Vegas, right, in my old job, and I'm just telling you, we've seen this happen, okay?
Right.
It can happen. But what's scary, they've got to decide if they're competitors or not, PCA and TPA. It was not a good message to see the PCA soliciting people to sign up for booths there. I don't understand that. To me, that made no sense to me. And I'm telling you, I have this gut feel that in 2021 the PCA trade show is going to move up, and I hope they have a strategy if they move that up. What they're going to do if they push these trade shows 2 months apart, right? There's going to be a big problem. So I mean, people are going to have to make decisions there, and it's going to hurt both of these people. So I don't know. What if next year the the IPC trade show moves to April.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So, I mean, people putting their eggs in the basket with TPE here.
Sure.
I don't know. I just like I said, I think they got this. I mean, I don't think I said I just don't think it's good that they and by the way, vice versa was happening at PCA last year, where the TPE people were soliciting booth space. So I don't like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A couple for me would just be record the seminars. And then post them on the website. You can decide if you want to make those available to only the people that attended the show, so that they can watch them if they weren't able to catch them during the live times, or you can just open it up to the public if you want, however you want to do it. But it just gives people an opportunity to catch up on things that they may have missed that they wanted to see. So I think that would be good if they could do that.
Last year, Aaron, they did that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Tobacconist Magazine, or we're Tobacco Business, will
Right.
send out, in their emails, they'll sprinkle them out over the next 60 days.
Okay. That's good then. If they do that, I would like to catch all those.
Which IPC I did not do because I wanted to see the retailer seminar with Scott Pierce last year, which I never got to see.
Yeah.
So the famous one. So
right. And talking to Robert and some of the other brands that were kind of in those pods, I think they would do a much better job if they put more seating in those areas. If they have to expand the pods a little bit to be able to accommodate that, that would be great. Because kind of what I was hearing, what I was seeing was like, there were certain brands that would kind of camp out, get their early camp out on those, there's like a pair of couches in a pod, and once you sit down for a meeting, who knows when somebody gets up or somebody pops in right away, and you can't really share that single space. So if they can maybe give a little bit more area for those that are kind of participating in that pod to utilize some sit down space, I think that would kind of be helpful. Just gives everybody a little bit equal opportunity to kind of have those spaces rather than have to just kind of stand up at the booth the whole time if they want to have a little bit more of a private conversation kind of thing. So those would be some of the things I had. So something that we've kind of talked about a few times, and I'm going to kind of just open this up so anybody can jump in when they want to. Question I have is, how long can these incentives last that they put out for the retailers, they put out for the media, anything that they've done for the brands that are exhibiting? Can these last beyond this year? Do we see them next year, or are they gone in a couple of years? What are any of your guys' thoughts on that?
Well, they've got the money to do it,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that they could continue to do it. It just depends on. It depends on how this strategy goes for them, of trying, whether this continual divide is going to continue.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping it doesn't. That's why I'm so hard on this stuff. I'm telling you, that's why I say hard things, because I don't like it. I don't like it. Remember, I do business with all these guys, right? And so why do I call people's, bluffs or people's ploys or whatever word you want to use? Because if it can get exposed, let's get past it now. Let's stop this. This is like covert shit that's going on, man. It's like CIA operative stuff.
Oh yeah.
And I like to spoil it because you know what? Let's get past it.
Yeah.
And the big divide is all about this premium cigar exemption. Mass market doesn't want it. You have to realize who those big companies are. And I've told you 100 times, I don't blame them for what they're doing, but I don't want to help them.
Right.
Matter of fact, I want to work against them. And they know that. I'll sit right across from those guys. Matter of fact, I was talking to the guys there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like two boxers, man. You just say, look, I want to kick your ass in the ring. But you know what I mean? We don't hate each other.
Right.
But that's what it is. And these guys are big and they got a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
But what they don't have is they don't have the affinity and the story that premium cigars have. And so, they don't like the traction that's gotten, and they don't want this premium exemption as much as they tell you they do. I'm telling you they don't.
Yeah.
Okay. Parent companies don't.
Sure. Is there a possibility that these companies that have pulled out of the PCA somehow subsidize these incentives to kind of keep them going? If they decide that this is a big power play and they want to start pulling from the PCA and get kind of guiding things more to the TPE?
It's effective if their customer base, which is the retailers, uninformed.
Right.
It's not as effective when I'm telling the retailers protect the PCA. protect the CRA. You don't want to lose those organizations. This is your only voice on this stuff. There are certain things that both the CAA and mass market and premium cigars can certainly work together on. But I'm telling you, when it comes to the premium exemption, we are not on the same page.
Right.
Premium cigar exemption does not help the mass market category. They know that, and they don't want that. They don't want that stripped out. But it does help our category, right? So that's where we have this difference.
Anybody else want to weigh in on these incentives if they can hang on for very long?
Well, I'd say, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead,
please,
Robert.
please,
You go. You go, Robert.
I'll keep it concise. I hope if they can maintain the incentives, I hope that the people that supported it this year, those organizations, media, I mean, I didn't get any incentives, quite honestly, financially or otherwise, but the ones that did show up this year, if your goal is to grow it, let's make sure you guys get the opportunity to have those incentives before other people decide, well, I guess I'll support it now. They had a great show. They got incentivized and now we'll go, because it's easy to do that. You've invested nothing. You didn't risk it, right? So I just hope that it's much like the trade show booth when PCA comes out. The big brands get the first shot at the big booths, and it hurts someone like us because we take the leftovers. But you know what? They earn their stripes. They've invested millions and billions in many years, and I'm a beginner and I get it. So I know my place in the hierarchy, but I want to make sure that if TPA is going to offer those incentives, that they remember the hierarchy. Remember who dance with the one that brung you. That'd be my first comment about it. And I would hope that, if there were incentives, I heard, Coop say that earlier, no incentives were to launch a new cigar were shared with me that I know of. And maybe I missed it. And I'm going to go back and ask Dawn because she communicates very well. But I didn't see it. Maybe it's just because I'm busy. But there should be a way to see that, and it should be transparent so we know what it is leading up to it, because it might change a lot of things about a lot of ways that we present and what we bring to the show. We want to provide an incentive for you guys, media and retail partners, to come support us, right? So we got to have, we've got to bring it, right? As Mike said earlier, if he comes next year, he wants to make sure he has something new to share or something, something special to share for people that show up. So I hope they just remember who supported them before, if it continues to grow, before they open it up to folks that have decided up to this point not to support them.
All right, Coop, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, no, I think for at least the next couple of years, they're going to be okay with that. They're going to have to, I think you may start to see them chop a few things off, though. So I kind of watch it. Maybe they aren't going to have $100 gift cards, in the next couple of years. Media wasn't offered the $100 gift cards. I'm okay with that. I think you'll start to see, and that's always a concern when you start whittling it down a bit. Are you delivering the value? Are you delivering more value is going to be the question. And I think they got some challenges there. But I think, right now, if they're going to grow this thing, they're going to have to do that. I'm curious to see if they actually make money on this show or not, Pre-Tech. I mean, that's what I'd like to know.
Sure.
And that will tell a lot.
All right. Mike, any thoughts on the incentives lasting?
I mean, I think that once they got you hooked, then the incentives go away. So, the question is, where's that line? I don't think it's at the first show. It might be at the third, of a new attendee. But Coop's right. I think that, eventually they start pulling stuff away to keep it in the parameters of their cost efficiency, whatever that number is. So, time will kind of tell.
Yeah, you may not see Bazaar Meats in a couple of years. That's because the little things I think
Bazaar Meats, I'm out. Get it.
You got to find the right people to take it.
Yeah. Do we see more new releases at the show next year or future shows? Do we think that more brands will start bringing out new stuff there?
Yes.
Yeah, there'll be some new piss categories and more in the back. There'll be some new stuff in there.
Yeah.
They'll have shop exclusives on the piss categories pretty soon.
There you go.
I think you will see it. I think they had foot traffic. They had. I mean, most people were pretty happy there, and I think basically they're going to want to put their best foot forward. So I think we'll see more product. Again, it won't approach PCA just yet, but you'll see more. I think you'll see more. That's why I'm kind of optimistic. I mean, I even heard a couple companies say they want to bring product next year. And they have a whole year now to do that and put that into their plans.
Well, I think we have to really wait until what happens with the SC side of the business in May and what transpires over the next year to see if that's even a viable opportunity for
Sure.
a lot of the brands that were there do not fall in the grandfather category that are taking old SKUs and rebranding or releasing them or updating them or whatever it may be. But the stumbling block there could be what happens to all of us on the brand side over the next year. It'd be, if you didn't have it planned out in advance, I don't know that you're going to be able to make an exception and just create a new product to bring it to TPE. Not with what we're facing right now. So that's my concern. At some point, we run out of arrows, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, the good news today, this was the biggest victory I think the premium cigar industry had today.
Yeah.
Because this is the first time something was taken out of the deeming rule. This is the first time. So, but who knows what the SC ruling is going to be? It could go. The cigar industry has been one step forward, two steps back. So, I'm not as overly confident with what's going to happen when the SC appeal comes.
Right. All right. Let's talk about PCA for a little bit. What things should the PCA take note of from the TPE20 show that they could use to improve the show coming up this year and for future shows? Anyone want to jump in on that one?
I will. I hope that the PCA learned about how to treat the press, you guys.
Mm-hmm.
They need to work on that and treat you guys better. I remember, it's been a long road to get you guys accepted. And I always thought that was the dumb. Matter of fact, I was on a board of directors back then when they were like, "Oh, we shouldn't let these guys in." I'm like, "Are you guys crazy?" I mean, seriously, dude, this is free press. You're nuts.
Yeah.
And we were in the middle of a major, political situation. We're trying to advocate for cigars. I'm like, dude, these guys are volunteering their time to do this. Why would you not let them in the show? And so I think that TPE welcomed you guys with open arms. And I hope the PCA learns a little bit. They should have a whole section for you guys set up, a whole press category. You know what I mean? They should have it lined up like when you go to a sporting event. They should give you guys all a booth, to be honest with you. They got extra booths, right? Hell, give every one of you a booth. That's what I think.
Right.
And then people could actually come by and talk to you, and you could put your thing in the background or whatever. I don't care, whatever. All I'm saying is I think that would be great if they did that. And then, listen, competition is what makes things better. And this is a competing show. And I think that they need to listen to to their customers a little bit better here and really start communicating with us, asking what can we do better? So I hope that's going to happen.
Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, let me go ahead, Mike.
I think that the PCA, they're failing in a couple things, and one of the major things is they've kind of forgot who their customer is, right? And they need to cater to that customer more. Not only do they need to do that, but I don't hear as a retailer about their wins. There's no marketing on that side as far as PCA is concerned, and I think that if that was a little more transparent, people wouldn't mind spending the amount of money that they have to spend to go to PCA. You don't see that, and marketing is super important. And at this day and age, it's really easy to pass out a W to the media guys or to their own platforms to demonstrate those things, and they don't. So, they need to go out of their way and think about the customers first, and they need to really distribute and market their wins. Yeah.
All right, Coop, go ahead.
So, in regards to the media, I kind of been clear on this. I've never been mistreated by PCA at all. But there was a clear level of media focus at this that we never saw before. Now, keep in mind, under the umbrella of TMG, there's tobacco business. They are media guys. They understood much better how to treat media guys, right? So there were things that we were given that we never had the opportunity for before. Early show floor access, which we've been told is an insurance reason why we couldn't get on the trade show floor early. Well, there was no insurance reason from what I understood here. So, I mean, and it was on the schedule, like, that we got on the trade show floor early. we paid media. Here's the problem: online media paid for the sins of two media guys who fucked it up for everybody.
Right.
And one's dead, and one's out of the industry. Right. For the most part, there's been a few maybe isolated incidents, but those two guys messed it up for everybody. And look, everyone makes fun of me. I love the fact that I was treated like an adult and I can go to a booth and ask for a sample. This was the first trade show I was ever allowed to go to and ask for a sample, because technically I'm not allowed to do that. Mm-hmm. And I know people say you're making a big deal about it. I want to be treated like an adult here. I spend a lot of money to cover this show. I don't make money certainly covering this show. But it's strategic. And I want to be treated like an adult. And I'm tired every year of having to abide by that stupid bylaw. Take the bylaw out and let media just ask for samples like every day. Guess what? Samples are part of what I need to do. I need to touch the product. I need to feel the product. I need to understand it. And sometimes I don't always get the product. I need to ask that question. So, just start treating the media like adults here as far as that goes. The other thing I'll say is that there was a level of customer service I felt that the TPA that PCA can learn from TPA. And what I mean by customer service is they were going around asking people they were asking media people if they were okay. Like several times I talked to them, but they were asking, I know they asked a lot of the booth people, hey, what can we do? I know they were very accommodating with that. You never see that element of customer service with PCA. And I understand it's a not-for-profit organization, but there's no reason why there can't be some focus on that to do that. Because I think that's what contributed to making it a very positive experience. Is, we you can say what you want about Kritik or whatever, but they tried to make everybody feel welcome. They really did.
Right. Any thoughts, Robert?
Yeah, a few. Back on the media, I think maybe it's our job to communicate better to PCA that for a brand of our size, leading up to PCA, during PCA, and the follow-up to PCA is the most vital time of the year that dictates consumer behavior and retail support of our brand. So getting the press releases out, communicating the messages in the releases, participating in those at the trade show booth, and then being able to have the content that you need, videos, photos, and interviews post-trade show is going to what dictate a lot of our success for the following 6 or 8 months that allow us to commit again and maybe grow for PCA. So I don't want them to discount. And I guess, again, the onus is on us to communicate the vital importance of it. If we're going to grow and spend more money and to put more money into the packs and whatever else we do, a lot of it's on your shoulders, what you guys do for us. And that's not to pat you on the back, but it's necessary for us what you do, and our success is dictated by that. Number two, in previous years, and I met with various members of the PCA board, after the trade show in August and September of last year, and, again, they're retailers and they're partners that sell Southern Draw, but, two things happen. One, as a brand like ours, we're kind of an afterthought when it comes to booking space and taking what's left over. I mentioned that earlier in the show. We want a fair shake. We've been to a lot of trade shows. We've been to a lot of trade shows in these exact venues. We know where the traffic is, and we know that it's easy to get lost in the corner. So if we're going to be put in the corner, and as they say on Dirty Dancing, nobody puts baby in the corner, then we're going to have a smaller space and we're going to invest less money, because there's no reason to have a much larger booth in a place that's impossible for the mass of retailers to get to. I think that's important. But then there's one other scenario where in the last few years, we've been told we couldn't have shared booth space. TPE proved in some level that it works, right? And it can get better, but at least we had a lower cost option to do that. And AJ asked us a few years ago to join him in the booth, and PCA or IPCPR at the time said, absolutely not. You're an independent brand. You're not a brand of AJ Fernandez, nor are you distributed by AJ Fernandez. So the answer is no. Well, it would have helped both of us at that point to do that. And I wish we had some options to take, again, not that Nick needs me or Saka needs me or Skip and Mike and those guys, they don't need us, but we would like to have an option to find some synergistic brands to work together, because it'll make your job easier, it'll make our job much easier to hey, if you're Steve Saka and everybody's lined up to talk to you, guess how many get to talk to him at a time? 3 or 4. And I'm using him as an example because I see him out there a lot in the market working, and he's got a lot of loyal followers, as does Romocraft, since Mike's on here as well. We have to take advantage of these synergies and work together. So those are just kind of messages that we need to get across to the PCA. And then the final thought, and I'll leave it at this, is the most welcoming thing about TPE for me this year was the simplicity. The booth was built. I didn't have to deal with the union. I didn't have to deal with the electricians. I didn't have to deal with the construction folks. I didn't even have to put the furniture in the booth. I literally had to put my displays up and, put some chairs out for the family to have conversation. That is a lesson learned right there, not to stress me for 10 straight days of building a booth, breaking a booth down, and then trying to perform in the middle of that. It's a valuable lesson I think we just learned. Maybe we stress ourselves too much, guys, but we need a simpler approach when you're smaller and you don't have the resources. Again, there's a hierarchy there, but we need a simpler approach that allows us to be more effective once we get there.
All right. Another kind of question I'll just post to the group and anybody can jump in on it. Is the current status of the TPE show a positive, a negative, or a neutral for the PCA trade show?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Repeat that question.
Is the current status of the TPE show, is it a positive, a negative, or a neutral to the PCA trade show?
Well, currently it's a negative.
Okay.
In the past, it was a neutral.
Mm-hmm.
But you got 5 guys pulling out. I mean,
Right.
It's pretty obvious right now.
Yeah.
Last year it wasn't.
Mm-hmm. All right, Coop, go for it.
Negative. It's absolutely it's a competition. The fact that they were there trying to solidify booth space is all you need to know for their own trade show.
Right.
I mean, it's an absolute. They can preach co-opetition all they want. They're worried about this, and like I said, I think for brands like Robert's size, some are going to make some hard decisions here. What they're going to do in the upcoming years right now. The only positive I could take is hopefully that there's some open-minded people that saw some of the best practices there that will try to do that. But I don't have a lot of confidence with that right now. And then, like I said, Jeff bringing up the whole thing about the 5 companies, he's absolutely right on this. He's right on the money. Yeah. So, I don't see – I can't see it. Otherwise, it's a negative.
Any other thoughts from you, Mike or Robert?
Robert?
Well, for me, I'm gonna say it's neutral because I did not look at TP as a potential replacement or a way to have a potential exit strategy from PCA. It's not on our mind at all. We appreciate being part of it. I think it's vitally important. I say this a lot, and not to get religious, and my wife's kind of put this in my head for 24 years. A lot of us we benefit from prayer, whether we believe in prayer or not. And then I say that because a lot of retailers and brands and factories benefit from PCA and CRA, whether they contribute or not, whether they interact with it or not. So to me, I don't want to see this division or this perception of division or reality of division, but it had no bearing on Southern Draw. We're not looking to replace our relationship with PCA. We're looking to grow that in line with our own growth. And if it means we need to put a little bit more in to make a bigger impact and to help finance what we need to win this battle, then we're willing to do it. So it's kind of neutral for us. But in closing, I want to say this, and I'm probably going to get in a lot of trouble. It's been brought up 5 or 6 times tonight, but in front of me is my computer, and until I hear from AJ Fernandez that he's not going to that trade show, I'm not going to further that dialogue, because per Frank Santos right here he said they have booth reserved for PCA, that they're committed to PCA and attending. And I even sent him copies of the press releases that say he's not going, that just happened. And so, but this is from Frank saying that's not true. Quit saying that we're not going. And, again, maybe we'll hear it from AJ, but I want somebody to reach out to AJ, and I want AJ to tell us, because he is my partner. But per Frank in this last few minutes here, he's told me we're absolutely going to PCA. So I just wanted to share that as a tidbit.
Robert, there was never a press release. It was one media site that went and printed the story and had never contacted anyone from AJ because that was the first question I asked. And so, I mean, there was no validation done on that story because there was no comment or anything from AJ Fernandez Cigars on that. So I'm kind of understanding on that. That was, you got to validate that before you print it out there. And you got to validate with the source.
And it's out there, right? I mean, we all saw it, but
Yeah.
it would lead us to believe that maybe there's truth. But I want to back up and say, hey, until AJ tells me, Robert, we're not going, I'm not going to believe it. But Frank seems to be of the opinion that decision has not been communicated in any way. So I just wanted to share it for the group since we've talked about it a few times.
Yeah, appreciate that.
If I may, Robert, one thing you said, it hasn't, it's neutral, not negative impacting you. Well, here's the difference is that right now the IPCPR and CRA still have the money, or they are paying for the legal bills, right? We had a big legal win today that the CAA is part of that as well, this lawsuit. But if you don't have, the $3 million that these guys are spending on it, you will be negatively impacted. And the CRA and the PCA is the only one that's going to fund any of these fights for you.
Point taken. And maybe I didn't clarify, but we haven't pulled back any level of support, not even just our trade show side, but our contribution, especially Glenn's very aggressive with us, but they've made their point to me. Yeah. So I just wanted to clarify it, but yeah, I get your point. Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't mean to, but I'm saying when those 5 companies pull out,
without question. Yeah.
That impacts you.
Absolutely.
You're last again, Mike, but any thoughts?
I mean, yeah, of course. I think that it's obviously competitive, and I think that I hope that PCA learns from it and adjusts and has better tactics moving forward for their customers. And I think it's a good thing for retailers. Smart retailers can capitalize on this. They can bridge buy, from one to the other. And the reality is, on a retailer basis, whether you're big or small, you probably have 4 or 5 brands that carry the majority of your humidor, right? And if you have an opportunity to capitalize on some form of sale or a new product from those brands 6 months out, 7 months out, you can still support both. It really is, it's viable. But you got to be a smart retailer. So,
yeah. All right, let's talk a little bit about trade show logistics. Is there room for the TPE, the TAA, and the PCA shows, or do they kind of start cannibalizing from each other in regards to what the outcome is for a industry trade show?
Well, TAA and TPE are around the same time, right?
Right, like 2 months apart.
Right, and they have. If you're a TAA member, you have access to new cigars, and you're a big dog, so you get big discounts with those companies. So I don't think the TPE will be able to successfully infiltrate TAA. It just doesn't seem possible, but it will bring those smaller retailers into the TPE.
Right. Thoughts, Jeff?
I like all 3, having all 3 shows. Why not?
Okay.
I mean, it's like I said, TPE is great for retailers. It's another opportunity to buy it at some deals here. So, so I'm all for supporting having the 3 shows and organizations. Like I said, I just don't like the certain armies pulling out.
Yep. Understood. I know you're not a TAA member, Robert, but any thoughts on having 3 different shows?
Well, I mean, for me, every opportunity we have to spend with our retail partners is vital. And I'm going to say that like a broken record, but if and when we're blessed enough to become part of TA, I could only imagine that would just be an annual pilgrimage and an annual planning phase that will allow us to execute something with those retailers that is special and unique to them. And hopefully we put something on their shelves that make them more money. But for us, it wouldn't affect, whether we grow with TP and PCA. As long as here's the problem is if the dates start getting too close to one another, because for us to try to do TPE and to do PCA, and you guys have seen us at the last 4 or 5 or 6 PCA, IPCPRs. We really, for our size, we really put our best foot forward. We do our best, and it takes a lot of planning. It takes a lot to execute that. But if we had TA, that's another one that we would have to do, and we'd have to do it at a level that is commensurate with what TEA stands for, right? So I look forward to that opportunity if it ever arises. It may or may not, but I tell you what, the brands that are TAA brands seem to really enjoy that annual pilgrimage and that time together with those specific retailers that really support their brand. And if you look at those retailers, and Jeff's been around this a long time, the ones that carry your TAA release typically are really supporting your brand in its entirety. And man, that would be a great win for brands of our size or Mike and Skip size, But let's try to make sure there's enough time in between them so that we're not stepping on each other's toes,
Sure. Coop, thoughts?
I'm going to ask Jeff this question. Anything change with the Dream Machine this year at TAA with the big four companies pulling out?
I'm not on the TAA board, so I don't know, and those deals have not been released. But I do. Here's what I see. Don't expect any. Don't expect any of the decision makers. I don't expect any of those decision makers of those four companies to be at the TAA. When I say decision, I don't necessarily think you're going to see Dylan Austin there. I don't think you're going to see Glenn there. I don't think you're going to see Javier there. And I don't think you're going to see, I don't know who's running General Cigar right now, whether it's Regis or somebody else, but I don't think you're going to see those four there. Because why? Because, listen, I haven't seen any of these guys talking on any of these shows explaining their positions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. I'm probably get an email tomorrow. Why'd you say this? Why'd you say that? You know what the answer is? Get your ass on a show, man. Some of the questions
there you go.
Let's talk about it, right? How many other issues haven't been talked about yet, right?
Yeah.
They like a joint press release and go, and then expect everything being hunky dory, and it's like, that's what your PR company might be telling you. Listen, all I got to say is, listen, whatever happens, there's opportunities for other companies here. That's the way I look at it. You can get a deck that could be reshuffled here, and I think it's crazy on some of these positions, but I think there's a wide open gap in the category coming up here real quick. Right. And it's in that luxury category. You got a luxury brand that's being sold next to piss right now.
Yeah. All right. Question that's got a couple of sub questions, and I'll throw it all out there so you can kind of take your pick at how you would answer it. When is the best time of year for a trade show? And one of the sub questions is, does a retailer's geographic location play into that? And does time of year play into cigar production at all? I'll open up to anybody that wants to jump in on either of those.
Well, if Jeff goes first, none of us will have to talk. But go ahead, Jeff.
Give me that question one more time. I'm still thinking about bottles of piss right now. Anyway, give me that one more
when
time.
is the best time of year for a trade show? And does a retailer's geographic location play into that timing? And does time of year play into cigar production decisions?
As far as production goes, I can't answer that. But I can tell you that I really like having the TPE in the spring, TAA 2 months later, and then the PCA later. Because if you look at buying, that spreads you out pretty good there. That's going to cover that could cover 9 months of your year. So I actually like it. What I'm not a big fan of is continuing to go to Las Vegas. If I was PCA, I'd get the hell out of there and leave that city, leave that up to TPE. Listen, Cretex close. They're from California. Let them have that city. If I was PCA, I'd start moving. I'd concentrate on Florida. That's where your premium manufacturers are, right?
Right.
And even the guys will tell you, right? At this show, where did your big buyers come from? Robert, where did these guys come from? You said the Northeast, right? It's a lot easier to get to Florida out of New York and all these other places than it is to get all the way over to Las Vegas. It's a long flight. It's a 4 hour, you get 3 hours of time change, 4 hours in a plane, and the tickets cost more. So I'm just, I'm not on any of these boards, But if I was a PCA, I'd get the heck out of Las Vegas.
Right.
No, I like Florida too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're talking Orlando, Tampa, either one doesn't matter.
No, Tampa
Yeah.
for
Tampa.
sure.
Yeah.
Cigar City, that's where it should be. It sends a real message too, man. That's the way to do it. And it's in, two of the guys that are pulling out, they got, it's in their backyard. It's in Davidoff's backyard. Altus has their warehouse there too.
Yeah.
And it would be smart to relocate it.
Sure.
But I don't know what their contracts are. They might have them. Heck, maybe they can't get out of it. Maybe it would cost them a fortune if they did. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. So Robert, cigar production, does time of year play into that for you at all?
Absolutely. If you look at, everybody does it differently, I'm sure, but we spend the majority of the year analyzing our production and sales, of course, and think about it this way, based on just our process, and we all have different process. I'm sure Jeff has a different process for his brand, but by August of this year, 2021 is not only projected, but the raw materials are sourced. They're ready to go. So historically, January, February, March have been the down cycle for us selling to the retailers coming out of the Christmas holidays. We're trying to prevent that from happening. We don't want so much cyclic approach. So absolutely. And the beauty of it is, knowing that we made a commitment to TPE, middle of last year, even before the end of the summer, we actually for the first time finished the year by putting a tremendous amount of inventory into the warehouse, which we've never had that luxury. So it has everything to do, if we're going to add TPE, if we didn't have TPE upcoming, we would have not had that much inventory on hand. It wouldn't make sense. Most of our production would be pushed to the end of Q2 to support IPCPR and the rebuys that happened in that 90-day cycle after IPCPR. So typically, you see about 70% of our production from the May time frame moving all the way into the October time frame, which leaves a good portion of the year where we have a lot less in production. I'd like to make it more uniform by doing 2 or 3 different shows, specifically the January show. It gives us a nice shot in the arm, and I think when Sharon gets through hitting all those credit cards, we're going to be pleasantly surprised at the outcome. And Jeff, brought it up to the second part of your question is we absolutely did see a lot of the colder weather folks attend and say that they wanted to get away from it, wanted to get away from the ice and cold. But I can promise you that if this TPE stays in Vegas for that time frame and PCA outside of their 2 or 3 year contracts does move to Tampa, I think the participation will be much higher. But the other side of that is I think the worst time for a trade show is that end of June, first week of July, because I don't know about everybody else, but we have a lot of family-owned retailers across this country, and when I say that, Jeff's a very large one. We have a lot of small partners, and that is the busiest time of the year for them. They don't have the luxury of getting away, and we may never see them at PCA if it stays in that July 4th window where their travel is prohibited by their most important time of year to sell their cigars and their wares. So I'd like to see that one move outside of that window that seems to be counterproductive for them in the future, because I think that's the one that's most questionable. TP is in a perfect window for us, and I think it's something that we welcome because of the time of year it is.
Real quick, Robert, I forgot that the show last year was on 4th of July weekend, the week leading. That was not very smart.
Brutal.
Yeah. When I say the time of year, traditionally it was the end of July, beginning of, and that's really the window it should be. But, remember they had some issues about being in the sands as well.
Yeah.
So, no, I'm no fan of having it the first week of July. That's silly. Mm-hmm. But, it is. We'll see what happens. Is it this year? It's a little later, isn't there?
Yeah, I think it's like second week, like right middle of the month. So, yeah. All right, Mike, thoughts on when you like to see new releases, when you like to buy, kind of time of year?
I mean, I've always bought at PCA. I've always bought new cigars at PCA. So, just because you buy them that month doesn't mean that they're coming out that month.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
I mean, we've all kind of seen that. Normally, there are some times when you get some of the samples that they're definitely not ready. So
Yeah.
I don't think it matters. You know, as long as there's an ability to introduce different products moving forward, I think that's more important. That's more of a key point. And
All right.
yeah, I think PTA in Florida would be awesome. So I don't care where.
Yep.
In the Panhandle, for all I care. It's just the travel to Vegas is brutal.
Yeah.
And then you take I took a red eye back, and the recovery time is horrendous. Like it's a process.
Yeah.
So I mean, Florida would be ideal, but I would even take Texas or something like a midpoint in the country.
Mm.
Not Oklahoma though. That's just be reasonable. But I think Texas wouldn't be a bad number two.
Sure.
Just something that's centralized. It gives makes it reasonable for all parties.
Yep. All right, Coop.
I think the problems with the timing of the PCA show happened when they moved this thing up to 4th of July and late June. That's when this all. I mean, there weren't as many complaints when it was late July, early August, like when it was in Orlando. It kind of fell right at the end of July. I remember my first one I went to in New Orleans was August. So I mean, I didn't hear the complaint. It's when they really started to infringe on that 4th of July, is when it became a problem with that. So I don't see that now. When we interviewed Scott Pierce, Aaron, he mentioned a couple of cities in that interview. I know he mentioned Louisville, and I think Charleston was the other one mentioned. And they're talking about putting RFPs out to some of these. If they're going to those locations, I could tell you that they're looking at a scale-back show. To me, like Jeff said, to me, Tampa makes the most sense. Orlando, certainly. I thought the Orlando show was terrific. And I understand why they put it in Vegas. That's the ultimate convention place to have it. One thing to watch is they're expanding the Las Vegas Convention Center too. So
Right.
it may be at a little more. It may be at a little more. They may be more competitive with the Sands right now.
Right.
So you may start to see some of that. But I would yeah. I mean, I wouldn't really mess with the calendar too much. Except I'd actually push the TPE back a little more. That's just my feeling.
Sure. All right. I know I kept all you guys really late, and I appreciate you hanging on. So last question. Would the cigar industry financially support an advocacy group if the funding wasn't collected from a trade show? So the PCA gathers that funds from the show. If the PCA decided that they wanted to focus on the legislative piece, they didn't want to focus on putting on a trade show, would the industry support that in another fashion, or does it need to be tied in because otherwise it would be a forgotten kind of entity?
I think the biggest issue with that is, everybody's trying to grab that top power key, right? And that's quite obvious of what's going on with PCA, right? So, if that were a way, if that actually had occurred, you would still see this process of somebody trying to take it over and it be in charge, So, I couldn't see it being sustainable because somebody would try and take it over.
Right.
So that's the biggest issue with that.
Okay.
So my answer to that one is no. The CRA right now is funded by support from the manufacturers that are, not the 4 that pulled out. And the industry is already strapped with the money. Remember, that's a joint lawsuit that IPCPR and CRA are paying for.
Right.
And there's already financial pressure right now. So if you took out the IPCPR, that's 50% of the funding for all of this. So how would you replace that? You can't go back. That one well is already tapped out 100% through CRA. So there is no other well to go get that money from. And in the 4 that pulled out know that.
Yeah. So you don't think that there could be a centralized organization that the industry would kind of donate to and say that this is, we're donating money to this for the fight, even if it wasn't part of a trade show, that they were just kind of pulling the funds from?
It already exists. CRA.
You're just saying from the CRA, yeah. Okay.
So it already exists.
Okay. Any thoughts, Coop, Robert?
Not a chance.
Okay.
Yeah, not a chance. I think I agree with what Jeff and Mike said.
All right.
I think they need it.
Yeah, I think it'd be tough to quantify as a brand, for example, our level of support. When it comes down to it's data for me, right? You know, Glenn's been very aggressive over the last few years, and luckily for me, I've won a lot of good poker hands, so I donated extra. But you know, the level of transparency it would require and communication, constant communication. Most of us don't we enjoy contributing, right? But we don't. I mean, outside of the fight, and we see some of the results of the fight, there's not a lot of communication or transparency between the fight, between the goal lines, if you will. And it would be tough. At least the trade show gives us a quantifiable opportunity to interact and share and see and touch and feel, and then ultimately, hopefully, you know, monetize it in some capacity. And I think without that ability to monetize it as a brand, it would be tough for us to do more, right? I mean, it would be tough. It'd be tough for us to feel like we're part of it if all we were being asked to is put money in the bucket when it went by, right? It's tough. It'd be a tough scenario for us.
Sure. Understood. All right. Well, those are all the topics I had for you guys tonight. Is there anything that we did not touch on that you guys wanted to talk about? And that's fine if you don't. I know I got you guys late, so.
I mean, you didn't cover meaning of life or anything like that, but.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you want to go another 3 hours, we could do it, but I don't think you're all in for that. So. All right. Well, I want to thank. Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
I do have one topic.
Sure.
So why don't you guys try to have a show with the Big Four on it?
I think, yeah, I would be completely up for that. And that's something that Coop and I can work on for sure.
Yeah, we're working on something right now, Jeff. I just don't want to. We're finalizing something. It may not be an all Big Four, but stay tuned.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely. We had a lot of discussions with folks.
You get to read off. You have to read off the comments section, though.
Yes, I'm sure it will be very lively.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, when we had Scott on, we had a nice chat going. So there was a lot of people that wanted to get questions in there. So we tried our best to kind of get some of those questions answered. So
yeah. But yeah, stay tuned on that. I just said it was until we have the I's dotted, T's crossed. I don't even want to say yes or no yet. But yeah, it's something we're definitely looking at, Jeff. Yeah.
It'll be like a congressional briefing. They'll be able to.
Yeah.
Exactly. I was going to say, make sure it's after this impeachment trial, so John Roberts can be there, so we can submit our questions in writing, and he can say yes or no whether it's relevant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The board of directors have to vet every question and answer before it goes out.
There you go. We have to take all the questions. We'll have to wait about 2 weeks before we can get the answers from, right?
That's
Council,
their PR department.
That's right. Yep. All right, Mike, Will, Robert, Jeff, thank you very much for your time tonight. I love the insight from all of your experience and your points of view. I think it was a great discussion tonight. Looking forward to seeing how the rest of the year goes. I'm sure we'll be chatting with all of you on primetime at some point in the coming months as well. So thank you guys. I want to thank everybody that stayed tuned and submitted comments and things like that. Thank you for joining us, and we will catch you the next time we go live. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.